Hey everybody, welcome to today's stream for movie monsters in tabletop role-playing games. Give me a second here. Well, this is what I get for
That's better.
depending on other people. So, I'm Jester Boris with I Want to Be a GM, and as I stated, we're doing movie monsters today so that we can have some really neat horror-themed or Halloween in particular fun for our tabletop games. With me today, as always, on my right,
Troy, the Planescape guy, and you may have noticed we have a special guest today with us, and you are, sir?
Howdy, I'm Kwynn the Fighter on Discord, and I have been a friend for these guys for a couple months now.
Oh, don't blame
well,
that on
over
us,
a year. So,
Over
Kwynn,
there's no way it's been over a year.
it has been over a year. Wow. So,
Yeah.
Kwynn, we're glad to have him with us because today, in particular, he's going to bring to us a perspective you might not have seen before, and that's Savage Worlds.
This is my favorite game of all time. I fell in love with it a few years ago. The system is a generic system, but it's very streamlined. It's fast, furious, fun. That's the tagline, and it can be run for any setting, anytime. It is a sweetheart of mine, and is a game that I run to this day, twice a week.
I got to sit in on one of his games, and it was very interesting and very exciting, very fast-paced. I liked it.
We all enjoy D&D, to be sure, and its fantasy roots are not to be argued. But when you want to go cowboys, cyber cowboys, you want to do just about anything, Savage Worlds is very much a framework upon which you can build your stories and world settings.
It's very much a toolkit setting, and you brought up cyberpunk cowboys. The setting Deadlands isn't exactly cyberpunk, but it is a fantastic supernatural horror game that you can play in the Savage Worlds system, and it's actually the grandfather of Savage Worlds. There was Deadlands that turned into Savage Worlds.
Fantastic.
It's a fantastic system that I.
So as we get into some things today, we're going to have a little bit of discussion about how to put together really good encounters. We're going to talk more about explaining what's happening versus describing what's happening, really hooking your players so that they can get into those horror moments. And we're also going to talk about a little bit of the homebrew that we put together to kind of give you some ideas of what you could do to have fun or just murder your entire party in new and exciting ways. So Troy, we're going to start with you because you've actually got something pretty cool. Tell us about it.
So, everybody at the Halloween time wanted to have monsters, and there's a lot of them out there. And we found a couple of them on the internet. We'll talk about a couple of them later. The true horror monsters that you do not want to run into, regardless of how equipped you or friends are. You just don't want to run into those guys. So, didn't want to add another one to that pile. I want to do something a little light and a little fun.
Yeah.
So I started going through my head of the giant Rolodex of movies, because I've seen a lot of movies. And I was like, these guys were always fun. I've joined their movies time and time again.
And then this was also a recommendation from our Discord group.
This one, and also Tremors. I didn't have time to do enough research for the Tremors, but I am going to develop them as a monster, and we'll do them again sometime later.
I've seen a few homebrews for the life cycle of the graboids, where you go graboid, the walkers, and all that stuff. So some of that information is out there. If you guys aren't familiar with Tremors, check out the first 2 or 3 films. They are great fun.
Oh, it's great fun. Great fun.
And really cool monsters.
Yes.
So the interesting thing about those would be how you present them. A lot of things that you'll see if you haven't thought about it yet is that these monsters are difficult because of the kind of problems that they present.
Yeah, and their life cycle is where it comes from. They start out, they're like a giant mean worm, and then they have babies, and the babies come out of them.
Right. Well, so it goes subterranean to on land to air,
and then every life cycle from one to the next is such different that it causes new problems. Like we figured out how to defeat the first one. What do you mean they can fly now? I remember that. I remember that in one of them.
Yeah, that's the third film. By the time we get there, they're doing that. So, but it's the same for any of these monsters we're going to talk about, or serial killers or horror guys, right? So when you're trying to deal with the headless horseman, who is very much a revenant, he's got a particular set of circumstances that make him difficult to defeat.
Absolutely.
Or Freddy Krueger or any of this sort of stuff, and then. That same is true of your monster.
So my monsters, I'm going back to 1984. Yeah, I'm a baby of the 80s. I'm going back to the movie Gremlins, and we're going to talk about Mogwai and then Gremlins. And I just love these guys. So bear with me while I read what I wrote, because if I don't read it, I'm going to forget something. So,
all right, lay it on us, Troy.
So what we got here, the lovable Mogwai Gizmo, introduced in the 1984 Gremlins movie, captured our hearts and imagination. I would also say that an entire new generation falls in love with the cute little monsters every time you view the movie.
Absolutely,
Probably every Christmas.
Absolutely.
It is a Christmas movie. I will stand by that.
The father did get that for his son.
He got
For Christmas.
he bought
For Christmas.
for Christmas. Yes, the first one was a Christmas present.
Worst mistake of his life.
Yes. So we see in the movies some of the creatures' traits that can be used by someone trying to fit them into a zoological catalog or a monster manual.
Mhm.
They have a high intelligence, capable of communication through speech and gestures, which also allows them to use devices common to humans after only viewing them for a few moments of examination, such as cars, microwave ovens, and various weapons.
We go so far as the
They do split off. They come out like a bullet and will break things.
They are violently propelled from the body.
Yes.
hang on there, Mr. Producer. We got any? Everything's all right over there?
It turns out the shot that I was trying to use, the camera, not the camera, the microphone wasn't working.
Has
you
the
done
microphone
this?
not been working at all the whole time?
Off and on.
Off and on.
Oh my.
The mic cut out. Oh no. So
Hi Connor, I recognize that as you. How you doing, bud?
all right. So Mr. Producer's on that.
Connor, say hi.
He did say hi. He said
Did
good.
you say hi?
So nobody heard me?
Nope.
Howdy. Yep, that's Connor.
Can we fire him? Is this
Don't worry, guys. I'll take over as producer. I know what I'm
Alright,
doing.
No, you don't.
Go home and go to bed.
Let's not bet on that. So what, the whole thing? The whole thing? What are we looking
Well, we
at?
can. We'll make sure that our audience has been able to
So look
see
at
it
this.
there. But
How does that saying good and howdy when you're sitting here? Who's Kwynn the fighter?
that's his brother on the
Oh.
same account. Knock it out. That's how the internet works.
I know how the internet works.
I heard that part about using ovens and other household things as weapons. That long back.
Yes.
Oh man. So go back over the water.
Well, that was all right. So, have you got us set up right now, Mr. Producer? Does it look?
Yeah, the camera that you guys are on right now has the microphone, and I'm trying to adjust the other setting that I had.
I gotcha.
What's
So,
Oh, did
It-
you cut away to
it's
the?
okay.
Oh, he cut away to
Yeah.
that camera, didn't you? And that one isn't hooked up to the microphone.
Right.
I gotcha. So, what we'll do, Troy, go ahead and back up just a little bit, and I'm gonna assist Mr. Producer on the other side of the camera. But tell us a little bit more about Mogwai, so we can get into the fun and the problems that we're gonna have with them as a potential antagonist for our PCs.
Okay, so rule number 1, don't get them wet. because they have a type of allergic reaction to the water where they reproduce asexually.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting behind me. I don't. Anyway, so I got to look this way. It causes an immediate and violent reaction as it forces the creature to reproduce through a type of budding that you see mostly in plants and some sea creatures.
Mm-hmm.
These offspring very quickly grow to the size nearly of their parent in a very short time, perhaps less than an hour, and are the same type as the parent.
And when they do bud off, they come out violently. They shoot out
They're
like bullets.
projected off,
Yeah, and they break
bounce
stuff.
around the room.
Mhm.
Yeah. Warning number 2: do not feed them after midnight.
What is after midnight?
We've had that discussion because after midnight, the next day is after midnight.
Exactly.
So it should be a very specific
From
time
like
frame.
midnight to dawn.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would agree with that. Okay, so but the movie just says don't feed them after midnight.
Yep.
So the Mogwai, cute fuzzy little gizmo, is lawful good in alignment.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
He only seems to exist to be cute and lovable.
Yes.
But when you feed them after midnight, they go through a metamorphosis where they emerge from their cocoon with a very different creature. Besides the obvious physical changes, their alignment shift is very disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Like a beautiful butterfly.
They turn into the chaotic evil gremlin with no care for the destruction they cause to their surroundings or their fellow gremlins.
I mean, they do care. They find great entertainment out of
They
it.
find tremendous entertainment, tremendous entertainment from destruction, both on personnel and property. They find the chaos fun and enjoyable and actually will seek it out.
Mm-hmm.
With these physical traits, the creature known as Spike, due to his mohawk, takes the opportunity to take over the small town by multiplying himself into a small army by jumping into a bird bath.
Just a bird bath. That's all it took.
And
By the end of the movie, he was trying to jump into a hotel-sized pool?
yes,
Ugh. Apocalyptic.
chaos ensues. Gizmo saves the day. You'll have to watch the movie. So the gremlin has several odd physical traits that sets him apart, in my opinion, the cousin of the goblin. Their very small size is one of the first things you'll notice about them, only standing 1 to 2 feet tall. They have 2 forms: the fur-covered Mogwai that can charm a person with their excessive cuteness, and the gremlin, mostly hairless, green, brown, and even grayish in color, with snarling teeth that warn anybody viewing them of their evil intent. Yeah, something like that. The gremlin will tend to group together for safety and will attack as a swarm if threatened. So those DMs that know of some creatures, they have the swarm attack, like rats and things.
Mhm.
The gremlin definitely has a swarm attack.
Yeah, they're bad enough on their own, but in a group is when that intelligence, that malintent,
Yeah.
really comes out to
Yeah,
be a problem,
Mhm.
because they're only about 2 feet tall,
You might be able to kick one like a football.
but you can't kick 10.
No.
So the origins of their physical oddities that distinguish this race from the average goblin is a mystery that surely would be a story of the year, or at least a really good movie.
Oh, sure.
So Gremlins is definitely a really good movie. So now I got some of their stats. Look at their strength as a 7, intelligence as a 12, wisdom 15, dexterity 13, constitution 11, charisma 16. I'm going to give them an armor class of 17 due to their small size and their movement.
Is this a
Agreeable.
the Mogwai or the Gremlin
They're
set?
slightly different. The Gremlin, I give a little more strength. And,
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify. So
yeah.
the stat block, I'll have you read it again.
Yeah.
That Troy has put together here is for the Mogwai form.
Yes.
But I have it written for both. So
Right.
You
We're
can
we're starting
see-
with the Mogwai. Yeah.
the write-ups we're going to talk about today, you can find on I Want to Be a GM, our Facebook page, under the
Yeah.
Files tab.
And
I've already put them there. Get you a PDF, play along at home.
Absolutely. Run this for your party.
So in hit points, one die 6 per level. And here's how we figure out their level.
Mhm.
So movement, I give them a normal movement of 16, the gremlin a 20, over any kind of terrain, and they can climb at the same rate,
yeah.
because they do. Attack and damage. The attack is a level 1 fighter, They attack as a level 2 fighter after they have their first offspring.
Okay.
And as a level 3 if they have a third. So he goes up kind of like vampires do.
Okay, so
You
yeah,
know?
particularly when you're dealing with like the leader, the main
Yes.
here, in this case, Spike.
Yep.
As he
Spike.
as he goes through his molts, that's how you're powering him up.
Yep. So give him
How-
a claw bite. Die 4, die 4, die 6. Or damage by weapon type.
Oh yes,
Because-
yes.
Because they use everything from axes and knives and a truck. So,
Yep.
Right.
That's
they are
right,
not
do.
limited.
Ooh.
And in the second film, office equipment such as staplers.
Is it tika or is it like
Yeah,
a
there's
flail?
they're
Okay.
yeah.
So in their gremlin form, the creatures tend to attack and they swarm, apply normal swarming rules. The Mogwai, the creature can charm you for 1 die 6 rounds simply by viewing their cute stare.
Aw.
Aww. And yes, the first time you see that creature on film, everybody in the theater says that.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Because you like the reveal was great because he's in this cage, and then he kind of like pokes his head up, and he's got these big old ears.
Fantastic
And-
puppetry. By
Oh,
the way.
oh yes.
So
Creature Workshop for the win.
those of you who like old movies, especially the 1980s, the Oriental guy that he buys the Mogwai from
Yeah.
is the same actor from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
So he buys that in Chinatown.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking this connects the two movies.
Oh, they're the same. Yeah.
It's the same guy. It's the
The
same
same
guy.
MonsterVerse.
I
Yes.
have yet to see Big Trouble in
Oh what?
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh.
man. Fantastically campy, goofy.
Oh,
Plays off a stereotype. So
but
the
Kurt
thing is-
Russell.
Yeah,
But-
Kurt
no,
Russell.
but
You
it's-
gotta pay a premium to go watch it on
Well,
YouTube.
the whole movie
Yeah.
is him telling the story while he's driving his truck down the road.
Yeah.
On the CB radio.
right, and
So
and
of
so
course
there's
it's going to be way over the top.
It is
but
way
it-
over the top.
but it's a lot of fun. So in my mind, here's how I'm thinking my heroes could encounter the Mogwai and Gremlins.
Ooh,
Magic Shop.
got a question here.
Oh.
Somebody's asking if Spike gets his own special stat blocks.
Ooh, so
Well, he's going to be at least a second level fighter, if not maybe a third. I know you tried to have at least a third, but I don't.
Ooh,
I don't know if
fifth
you made
edition rules. Could he take Eldritch Knight as his third level fighter?
Do
Now-
we
It's starting to get really
want?
bad.
Do we want to give Spike magic? The
I
answer
do.
is
No,
no, yeah, no. What do you mean?
no.
Yeah. So,
I would
well,
also
here's
say, though-
what I'd say, Carrick. What do you think? Would you give Spike magic? Do you want to make these
No.
magical creatures? No,
They
but
argue.
well, you
they're-
could theme them that way. So they put them along the lines of Fae,
Yes.
and now we can introduce them into Wild Beyond the Witchlight. There's
Oh.
yeah, but I was thinking
They would
if-
fit
or like
perfectly
Shadow-
there.
yes,
Shadow
that-
Effect stuff.
put them in yeah, put them into Wild Beyond the Witchlight
Oh.
and watch them take that whole circus and turn it into a circus.
And then tear it apart.
yeah.
Tear it apart.
But well, can you imagine the kind of trouble you could put your PCs
Oh
in
my
because they're the one
God.
that got them wet,
Mhm.
or they're the ones
Oh,
that.
man, like, they bring the Mogwai to the circus, and then the Mogwai starts
Well,
eating,
that's what I'm
popcorn and
saying.
chicken strips and stuff.
So
yeah.
I'm saying like they find it in a magic shop, or they find it in
Right.
Like you know, you're gonna have that ranger who wants a new pet,
Yeah.
and so they're always
Oh.
gonna ask, "Is there a
Oh, no,
pet
no, no.
shop in town?"
No, not the ranger.
The
The tree hugging
druid.
druid.
The druid.
Well, okay, so the druid's funny, but what if you get a good roll as a wizard searching for a familiar?
Oh,
Wouldn't that be the kind of familiar a warlock or a wild magic sorcerer would get?
So
God.
is that named Ken?
So yeah, we got Carrick here. He says
Sherrick.
Fae and Aberration can both come to with spell-like abilities, which
Yeah.
is true. Particularly the charm that Troy was talking about is kind of how I'm seeing that play. But I don't
Transformation
recall
and
anything like that
multiplication.
show yet. So
That's why I would like to default as Fae, because they have what you can quantify as a Seelie and unseelie form.
I think
Yeah.
Spike's. I think if we did a character sheet specifically for Spike, I would give him a higher intelligence, because especially
Yeah.
after when he has his first litter,
Yeah,
and then he starts sitting around looking for weapons or how to put together something.
You can see.
You can see him thinking about how this thing works, how that goes there, how this goes there,
Yeah.
and you can just see the evil wheels turning, how he's planning things.
Sure. And to your point, Carrick, they didn't have magic or magic type abilities in the films for sure. They were meant to fit into a modern setting, the 80s. And they
some
were
have-
bad enough as it was. But if you're going to introduce these guys as an issue for your party, depending on the themes of your table, giving them a couple magical abilities. If particularly if you were dealing with wild magic, and they
Yeah.
got a hold of something, or here's something that's fun. Give them a wand. What's the wand of wonder?
Wonders.
No,
Just-
no.
What was that quote that?
You wonder what are you
new
gonna
and
do?
exciting ways to kill your party.
New and exciting ways to kill your party.
Oh, man.
So they get because the wand of wonder is a cool item. If you haven't messed with one, it has X number of charges, but each one is a different spell.
I have an adventure now.
Oh, no.
I like to pick out the spells the Wonder
The
gets.
local town wizard's party has come back into town, and they have come to acquire him for an adventure. So the wizard is out of town, and of course he's got like his goblin servant who takes care of the tower while he's gone. And the party, right as the wizard leaves town, shows up in town with the Mogwai.
Here we go. Rick. So we were talking a little bit ago before we came on the air about how to tie different monsters into your story. And whenever I start thinking about a monster, be it NPC, evil wizard, or whatever,
Yeah.
or just a true monster, everything from an owlbear to Mogwai, I like to use the word justify. Because I need to justify how this creature is in the story. I need to justify how the evil wizard is using his spells and potions
Yeah.
as he's fighting. So when you look at setting a creature or a monster into your story, try using that word when you're equipping them or planning out the encounter. I want to justify how they're going to fight or justify my story. So I just had that evil word pop in my head. So imagine, if you would,
Uh-oh.
your low level, I'm going to say 2nd to 5th level brave adventurers going out, trying to clear out some goblins from the woods, and the goblin leader has Spike on a leash.
Yeah.
Turn him loose, like a ravenous dog on the party.
What is this even smaller goblin?
In a
Is
cage.
this your child?
Yeah, no.
He's in a cage, and they poke him with sticks.
I'm trying to gnaw his way out.
Dude, could you imagine? This would be fun. Your PCs are the goblins that encounter the gremlins in a cave, and then you've got goblins versus gremlins.
Oh my lord!
That sounds like a Blood Bowl kind of thing.
It does sound like a Blood Bowl.
That sounds like Blood Bowl. Okay, anybody doesn't know Blood Bowl? Blood Bowl is football played to the death.
So there's a lot of ways, of course, that the Mogwai can be applied, both at like not even the levels, but I mean like low intensities.
Yeah.
Where you've got more of a role play focus, particularly if you're following the films, they're exploring what the Mogwai is and getting a chance to learn and to hang out with him. Only for the problem later, the first problem is that he molts. So I had one, and that was, it's like if you rescue a dog that turned out to be pregnant,
Yes.
you're like, okay, cool, I've got a dog. Then it has a litter of puppies. You're like, well, now I've got another problem. But then all the puppies turn out to be like hellhounds. So that's your third problem that you have to face as you sort of progress through the implementation of the Mogwai into gremlins.
That is true, because some of the offspring of the original Gizmo, they already had foul dispositions.
Yeah.
That
So
is right.
So
Yeah,
one
they
of them
were a
tried to
little
bite the kid,
more
they were already
mischievous.
smashing stuff, and then whenever they became gremlins, it was worse.
So when I was putting this all together, one of the parallels that I kept drawing into my head and just keep pulling me back there, the Mogwai, cute little fuzzy gizmo,
Yeah.
reminded me an awful lot, but especially when I started writing out their characteristics and things, as the Tribble from Star Trek,
yeah.
because they're cute and fuzzy and lovable. Everybody loves them, but they have one problem.
Yes.
They multiply worse than a group of rabbits.
Mhm.
You have one today, you have 100 tomorrow. And, then you give them to the Klingons at the end of the show.
Sounds like a sustainable food source to me.
It is. It is.
Right. The so what we need to go back and talk about some of the stats for the gremlin form, because this is obviously where we're gonna go with this as we present these monsters and series of problems to our players. So when these Mogwai do make the transformation into gremlin, what is our base gremlin gonna look like?
I give him 2 more points of strength. The Mogwai is 7, and a Gremlin 9.
Okay.
Because
And
a lot of the things that they do, it's hard to say that they're just stronger, but they are physically bigger than
Sure.
Gizmo.
Right. So when you're dealing Mogwai to Gremlin, we have a relative strength increase.
Yeah.
So
Intelligence of 12, but I'm gonna say Spike. I'm gonna give Spike the 9, but I'm gonna give Spike an intel of at least 14.
Yeah.
Because he really comes up with some plans and he starts looking how equipment works, what does electricity do at one point?
Yeah.
How to start a truck. I mean, he really has it going on in his head. And their level of communication is very crude, but they definitely through gestures and grunts and
Yeah.
pointing and laughing at each other.
well, a bit of a pack mentality. Yeah.
Definitely a pack mentality. So there's definitely communication there. So their wisdom I would keep set at a 15. Dexterity, I actually the Mogwai I give a 13. The Gremlin I give a 12 because even though they're bigger, they're a little more gangly.
Yeah, they have
and
the longer arms, the
the
shorter
longer arms,
legs. Yeah.
And when they run and try to do stuff,
They're kind of awkward.
they're really awkward. They're reminding me a bit of a chimpanzee with
Yeah.
short legs and longer arms. So they're stronger, but the chimpanzee can't really run.
No,
you know.
they're built for climbing. They're built
Right.
for what they do.
Constitution, I give them another point of Constitution.
Mhm.
11 versus 12. 12 for the
Slightly larger creature.
Slightly larger
stronger.
creature.
Yeah.
charisma. This is where I really shocked them. So the Mogwai I give a 16 because
They're
aw.
adorable. Yeah,
The Gremlin I give an 8
makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
because they are. Your first reaction to seeing a Mogwai is aw. Your first reaction to seeing a Gremlin is oh my god, what is it? What is that?
Yeah.
What
So-
an adorable baby.
What an adorable baby.
Have
Did
you
it
got
live?
any thoughts on some of that?
No extra thoughts that I
No extra
should
thoughts. So
after that.
that you should apply.
I'm
Yeah.
just sitting here and listening
Well,
and enjoying the talk.
as we talk particularly about Spike, to Carrick's questions earlier, one of the things that we mentioned as we're building stories and writing out the plots for our adventures, particularly if you're going to have a singular bad guy, you'll want to. So you're going to start with a basic creature type. So if you've got an orc, then an orc chieftain is going to be an orc
Yes.
as your basic creature type,
Mhm.
but specialized. So, his own particular stats blocks, ways of fighting, and things of that nature. So you'll want to do the same here with Spike or your own particular leader gremlin that presents the challenge to your players.
They don't really seem to like an orc. They all go to using some type of war club, axe or sword or something. Or gremlins, just anything that's laying around is a weapon.
Well, I just mean,
So-
so if I were just writing a basic adventure,
Right.
right? So if I have my thieves, right? You can go find thief in the monster manual and get a basic stat block.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then you make your named thief guy, and then make sure he's got his stats are particular to him. Same thing here with Spike, as we're dealing with putting the Mogwai and Gremlins together to challenge your players with. Make sure that your main bad guys have that particular character sheet, so you know that how they fight, how they are different, and what really makes them
I have a question.
the issue for the party. What's that, Mr. Producer?
If you're wanting to flesh out, like if you were having, let's say, a campaign, and for today's play, your main fight, your main bad guy are the gremlins, and Spike is at the end. Would you try to go full on with the character sheet? Like if you wanted to give them the
Well,
improvised weapon
this-
specializations,
well,
for,
right.
like Star Wars, or
This
maybe a
is-
weapon.
That goes back to the question of how much should I prepare, and that's different for every DM.
it's different for
I
every
had found
encounter.
that.
Well, it is also different for every encounter, but it's one of those things where if I come to my one shot with 400 pages of written material, you haven't over prepared if that's what you need to run that encounter for yourself.
Sure.
Because some people can start with the meme of sexy goblin question mark and run a table for 12 hours and it's fine. And other people are going to need a little bit more material than that.
Get out of my head!
You wrote 2 pages on the Gremlins. I wrote
Yeah.
7 on mine.
Right. And so it's going to be different by DM. Just make sure you prepare to a level where you feel comfortable that you can run that adventure and everyone's going to have fun. Because that, at the end of the day, is what we're here to do, is have fun.
That is rule number one.
Rule number 1 is important that everybody at the table is having fun, and if everybody at the table is having fun, rules don't matter.
Indeed. So, that I think the Mogwai would be a lot of fun. It would be a very lighthearted Halloween sort of challenge. It's going to be a little
It's a
bit.
Christmas movie.
This is true. It's a little bit different than necromancers and graveyards full of
absolutely,
zombies.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely, you don't want to spring this on an unprepared party. You want to let them know ahead of time. You don't tell them that it's what it is, but hey, we're gonna do something a little different, something more fun, lighthearted. Everybody up for that? Because if you have serious players at the table, they're gonna be a little upset.
I think this monster would be great for parties whose primary player base is 15, 16 and under.
Yeah.
Number one, because they're going to enjoy the lightheartedness. Number two, because they won't know what's going on.
They've never seen the
They've
movies.
never seen the movies.
It'll be a complete surprise to them. It'll be a treat. You could reenact Gremlins, and they
You
would
could
know.
do scenes right out of the movie,
wouldn't
and they
know.
have no idea.
And if you have anyone our age, the moment you describe this tiny teddy bear of a thing and it sings and anyone says don't get it wet, you're gonna immediately know what it is.
So
Like, yep, that's a gremlin.
I did see a meme about that with the trimmers. It was like everybody under 20. Man, what kind of monster is this? Everyone over 20. Get off the ground!
yeah, that's it. That's what I guess.
Get off the ground.
That is the thing. Yeah, if you've seen the Kevin Bacon film, you know not to be on the ground when the tremors arrive.
Mm-hmm.
I do want
On
to
rocks.
call out there, Carrick. That is a great quote. Improv what you can, prep everything else. It's a
Yeah.
good way to boil that advice down and help dungeon masters who might be still getting a handle on running their games. Make sure that they're preparing to the level that they need to prepare for.
Yeah, that is a good quote. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
All right,
So what would you do with Spike?
yeah, let's hear that in the
got a
comments.
good-
Tell us a little bit about how these guys would be.
Because the Fae definitely describes well the Fae. Spell-like abilities.
So, like,
I don't know what
I haven't yet run Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Yeah.
I want to go buy it specifically to insert the Mogwai. So,
It's like I don't know who the villain is, but
So
I know
what
who
kinda-
it is now.
Well, going back to this point, the Fae abilities. What type of spell-like Fae abilities would make sense,
sure.
but not overly destroy the adventure?
Well, the charm for the Mogwai in particular.
Yeah.
But there could be certain curse-like effects that the gremlins could apply that would impose disadvantage or things of that nature on rolls. They, of course, would have stealth, which would maybe they'd get advantage on stealth rolls because they do have the darker skin tones, the sort of nefarious mindset, and they did set up traps and attack from the shadows in certain instances earlier on.
I think if I were to give them spells, that's probably the direction I would go. Would be like move silently or shadows.
Well,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, even
I would say
invisibility,
stealth or illusion.
Yeah.
right? Some minor illusion, something
Yeah.
like that.
'Cause that,
but-
that fits the theme of
Particularly when we're dealing with something that's supposed to be first or second level as a bad guy. So we're dealing with maybe CR1 half CR1.
Okay, so to that point,
Yeah.
there's a scene where one of the gremlins is a female, or at least dresses up.
Yeah, I
female,
remember. Yeah.
with a bikini and a wig,
Mhm.
and then they change the lighting to all look starry and
Right, the
maybe
soft
got
focus
fat
of the
lipstick on,
yeah.
and
It's
it's like trying to charm one of the helpless humans that's trying to kill them all.
right.
And winds up, grabbing a hold of him and kissing him all over the place. But that first moment there, you're like, this creature is actively still trying to do the Mogwai charm with this, -8 charisma, but wearing female clothes and a wig and lipstick.
Right, and so there you get their evil stint with deception,
Yes.
but it's all
deception.
part of that mischief. But yeah, still trying to use charm as a way. So particularly for the Mogwai, and we see this with why are puppies cute and things like that. So you don't eat them. So it's a survival mechanic to be cute and fuzzy and cuddly. Now the gremlins don't have that,
No.
but they are still smaller creatures, and so that's where they tend to pack. And some of their other abilities would be based on their survival in the wild. So still being able to charm, being intelligent about their environment and how to use that. You would see those sorts of things come forward to be applied against a party, however you're doing your adventure.
I'm kind of against giving Mogwai spells now that I think about it.
Well, I
wouldn't
wouldn't,
just
I wouldn't
because-
go full on with like magic missile and lightning bolt.
Well,
That's,
exactly. Because
Fireball.
Mogwai to me seem very scalable to the level. Like I would be totally okay throwing Mogwai and Gremlins at a 20th level party as long as they are found, released, and wreak havoc in like a wizard's tower.
right. The
Which is
setting.
where the wizard's tower idea was
Sure.
going.
Well, the
Like,
setting.
can you imagine a like you bust down a door and there's 30 gremlins and the one in the middle is wearing a necklace of fireballs.
So so
This is true. So
in the Wizard's
maybe not.
Castle,
Well, that's.
he uses them as the trunk monkey.
Oh yes.
You kick open the wrong door and there's 30 of them in there.
Well, so this is where I go back where you give them a wand of wonder.
Or
Because
maybe-
even as a level 2, as we've talked about, if we keep their stats the same, we don't have to ramp them up to be level 20 gremlins.
No.
But when
Just
when
give
you've
them
got
level 20 magic items.
instead of 5 of them, there's 30 of them, and now they have access to the wizard's cabinet. And the chaos that ensues when the apprentice drops a potion. Now you've got 30 gremlins just chucking them at you. So, yeah, definitely scalable. If you wanted to shift their focus and give them some spell-like abilities as more of a Fey type creature, I would think you would want to counter them in smaller numbers, and that would increase their difficulty because now the spell-like effects can come to bear against your party. It's just like when you throw a wizard at your group. You know, if you're throwing a 3rd level wizard versus a 5th level wizard, you know, fireball is or is not in that calculation. So I think I'm with you on that one, Quinn.
Okay, so we got for a low level party, how do you deal with the inherent action economy problems of 30 gremlins?
Well, so
Swarm
you break
mechanics.
right. This is where I would
Swarms.
break them down into separate swarms,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
that way you can
One
have
swarm, two
a few
swarm.
of them. And then for our games, we tend to do initiative by group. So bad guys, and then a single initiative for the party. We've talked about that a little bit before, and we do have a video that gets in depth on it on our YouTube page if you want to kind of see our theory on initiatives. But a couple small groups treated as swarms will let that work very quickly. And then because you're dealing with swarms, you may give them advantage on attack rolls for grappling and that sort of thing, but maybe not.
Like a pseudo pack tactic.
Sure. And then I would also say if my archer is now attacking them, you start ticking single gremlins off.
Yeah.
Versus your standard like burn it all with fire tactics, and then you can take packs down at a time.
I'm
So
also playing with some of this in my head, if I may jump in here.
yeah,
So when they have a litter, 1d6 of new creatures per round exposed to water.
well,
So if they jump in a pool, they're going to continuously produce.
right,
But if
they
you just throw a pack of water on them, they're just only going to produce one.
yeah. So hold on, so
Well, that
right
was...
there we go. Carrick, yeah, for a little over, and then Mr. Producer.
And swarms are for if there are multitudes of them, but for things like the kitchen scene from Gremlins, where it's only like 5 of them,
Yeah.
but they are individually wreaking havoc, that might also almost be a skill challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other way to use this is with different skill challenges, or you can treat the area as being rough terrain.
Mhm.
They're throwing pots and pans and cutlery and stuff at you, and you're just trying to make it through to the other side. The gremlins are in their element causing chaos, and they don't necessarily want to chase you because they're, maybe at that point they're not trying to cause you like death. They're just being chaotic beings.
Yeah, that does seem
So
to be their-
then you've got a skill check of some kind or some sort of difficult terrain obstacle that you could present outside of a combat challenge.
Like this one. So you could also have more movie-like explanations based off player roles. I do that for large fights, like if the party is in a fort under attack.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you're going to bring in movie explanations, if you have the skill to do that, absolutely do that for no matter what's going on. It helps to paint that picture for your players as to the details of what's going on. So if you say you're in a 20 by 20 room and there's a chest in the middle of it, that's completely different than if you spend the next minute or two describing the tapestry hanging on the wall, and you believe that that's the leader of the country that you're currently in, and showing his family lineage, but the son is different. A part of it is ripped. If you go into details describing it or how the combat is going on, Absolutely. That makes the whole immersion into the moment for your players much better.
What I meant by that is instead of having every player try to attack individual people, say there's 300 orcs and they're trying to attack the fort they're in, right? Instead of having like attack this guy and then tick down from 300, now there's 299 because you killed one, right? If you have a decent roll, you can be like, all right, well your character's over here, you're firing arrows at everybody else, and there's orcs coming over the walls. You can have it more faster pace and more bigger, basically, without having everyone do an attack roll for damage.
Well, sure. There's ways to handle large combat
Yeah.
where that combat actually ends up being the backdrop to the action the players will take.
That's what the point I was trying to.
So here in this case, Carrick was getting at how you deal with actual combat encounters.
Right,
You know,
but so if there's a large swarm of
right. So when you
Gremlins.
break down 30 into 6 groups of 5, that's very easy for me as a game master to handle and very understandable for my players to try to engage with.
It's like a lot of creatures. One of the rules of thumb that I like to use is that no more than 3 creatures attack a party member at one time, unless somebody's doing a missile weapon.
Sure.
So because you got somebody standing to your front left, front right, and from the behind now, and then you got somebody over across the room shooting an arrow at you. That's 4 people trying to kill you.
Right.
I think that's enough.
Well, the dice probability by itself becomes
Yes.
problematic for that particular character.
And if I use a swarm monster or a monster using swarm,
Yeah.
like a group of rats, I'm gonna say that's all 3.
Yeah.
But I can still use a missile or also as
Sure.
a magic.
Right. So,
So-
one attack roll, 1 damage, and then another effect.
Right.
So it helps keep the situation pressing without straight obliterating your party member with dice probability or other game mechanics that can
Don't-
cause action economy problems.
Don't
What are you
kill
doing?
them right away.
You're smiling weird at me.
What?
I totally don't just gang up on one person at a time, tactically taking them out one by one
Quinn.
until I've won them.
Okay,
What?
opponent will last you a lifetime.
Yes. A well-maintained opponent will last you a lifetime.
So
So your players may also they could potentially get the feeling that you're picking on them, especially when they're about to have some kind of success. So you want them to succeed, but you don't want to make it easy. So there's a fine balance in there between your story and the monsters you throw at them.
Yeah.
And finding that balance comes with experience. So don't be too hard on yourself too fast.
absolutely. So I think
Another
that's-
monster?
yeah, let's talk a little bit more about some other monsters. I think the Mogwai would be a lot of fun for sure. Either to
guy.
run or to encounter. So
Matt, I found this one.
Yeah.
On the internet.
well, let's hold off on that one because I'm excited for the other one. Quinn,
This
who
guy-
likes
a
to
little overly
kill.
exciting here.
Well, Quinn, who
Oh,
likes to
yes.
kill all of his people.
Quinn-
I do like to kill all my people.
Twin,
And-
what is it? TPK, the Day Fighter. What is it?
Quinn the fighter.
so,
Quinn the
Twin,
issue
the
fighter.
TPK
Yeah.
DM. What is
Yeah,
it?
I've had a few of those in my life.
particularly,
It's always against smart. See, I never TPK my party with like goblins or wolves. It's always when they fight intelligent opponents who focus fire, use tactics, and are smarter than them.
particularly, I wanted to talk a little bit about Savage Worlds. And I do want to say thank you again for being here and hanging out with us today.
100%. I'm glad
Guys,
to be here.
if you haven't seen him, Quinn is our guest today. He hangs out on our Discord server as Quinn the Fighter and is a DM that runs a lot of Savage Worlds. You're also
Mhm.
playing Call of Cthulhu.
We're also playing Call of Cthulhu.
And he's going to be working with us on one of our upcoming live events. So we'll have some more information on that, but it's going to be a really interesting journey into the Underdark. So more to come. As it is right now, you prepared a very iconic movie monster
Yes,
for
I
us
did.
to kill our parties with.
I was the first one to jump on the movie monster bandwagon.
so,
And he picked a good one.
I hit the buzzer and I went, the Predator.
so
And so I am proud to share with you guys my build for the Predator. My only question is, do I start off with my paper that I wrote or the stat block that I made for him?
well, let's talk a little bit about the Predator
Yeah, what
generally,
was-
right? So
Some of his skills, some of his talents.
not worried about that. I just mean, so we're dealing now with an alien.
An alien.
And so we had some questions earlier about monster typing.
Mhm.
You and I talked about this.
We did.
And
We-
I think we settled on humanoid.
Yeah, we did settle on humanoid. In my original stat block, I wrote him in as an aberration kind of offhandedly because I was like, oh yeah, of course. Every alien that is in D&D is clearly an aberration. And then later I remembered, wait, but the Yith are
Spelljammer.
yeah.
Right. Well,
they're
that's the way we can
humanoids.
bring him in for sure. So, the first Predator film, we'll talk a little bit about it to set up how we might encounter the Predator as a group of players.
There's certainly, it's not a strict setting that you need, but there are strict properties of the environment that the Predator would prefer to
Right.
have to take advantage of.
Something you told me earlier, it was he's a gotcha, or he's
He's a twist villain.
twist villain is what it is, because
And-
it's not the one you go to fight.
No.
No.
He finds you.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
You're off. Because in Predator 1, it's an A-team rescue mission.
Yep.
yeah.
That turns into the Predators hunting you. In Predator 2, it is like a murder mystery. This grizzled detective looking for the psycho killer. Turns out the psycho killer is a predator.
So that's when we're dealing with the Predator, and as we've seen him in the earlier films, before we get into AVP and we
Right.
see the Predators operating in groups and that sort of stuff. The single Predator was the villain that you didn't see coming because you weren't looking for him. And we see him, he selects environments, he's very methodical,
Very
and
picky.
then also beyond that, physically powerful with a lot of interesting technology available to him, or weapons and equipment. So let's talk a little bit, I think, with your write-up that you had, because the Predator does have, as an intelligent being, a methodology.
Yes.
So the when we're dealing with the Predators of the films, they were on sorts of rites of passage, and so they kind of had a general idea of the quarry they were hunting and where they might be hunting. But there's some prep to that, some things that the Predator would do.
Typically, what I would like to imagine for myself is that the Predator doesn't know everything about the people, environment, or technology of the places they're getting into. Rather, you can almost imagine them in their spaceship going, okay, I'm seeing long shadows being cast. I see trees, I see foliage, or I see big cities. There are going to be plenty of places
Well,
to hide.
He's sitting in a spaceship, or maybe with binoculars, going, "I like the looks of that guy's skull."
Well,
Well, yes,
So-
but we're talking about, this is my part 0. The Predator
Yeah.
is scouting. He arrives. It's his setup phase. He
right. It's
has
so like if we were to go
landed.
game hunting in the Serengeti, right? We kind of have an idea of what the lay of the land is, what we can expect to find there, and the Predator would have the same idea. Okay, we've got humans.
Yep.
We've got this sort of terrain available, varied. I'm going to go here, and this is sort of how I'm going to prosecute my hunt. So that the Predator would start with these basics.
Yes.
You know, I kind of have an idea of what I'm going out there.
And their equipment is always very generalist.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about sort of that setup. You said phase 0 or step 0.
Phase 0, the Predator has arrived and has begun preparations for the hunt. It has selected its leaders have selected the hunting environment that this Predator in particular, and I know they're called the Yukja. I'm calling them the Predator.
Oh, as far as the race
Yes,
name,
the
yeah.
name of the race, technically. So in the stat block, if I could fix it, it would be humanoid parenthesis Yukja.
Right, but we're talking about the
Yeah,
Predator.
The Predator.
So-
So they have selected their hunting environment and they have landed, and they are now cloaks up at all times, and they are trying to get a more precise lay of the land, and they are picking off very easy targets, not as primary prey, but as almost set dressing.
Right.
It's trying to sow fear, the psychological warfare that's got going on.
right, but it's a part of the methodology, right?
Yes.
Stalking the land, learning the lay, what is actually out here now that I'm here. We saw where they'll go and collect smaller targets. Because the idea was to have as many trophies when they return as possible, but they also seek a worthy challenge. They want a story, they want the glory,
Exactly.
and they want the honor of defeating something that's worth defeating.
Mhm.
Which is where we see in the first film the Predator who comes across this Spec Ops team,
Picks Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold in particular, but the Spec Ops team in general is way higher level
Way.
than the surrounding area that he had been hunting before they got there.
Now, and I was, for my 5th edition stat block, I was going off of this assumption. I can't remember where it is in 5th edition, but it said something along the lines of even the most grizzled and veteran city guard is a 3rd or 4th level fighter.
Yeah.
So
Right.
this predator is a 5th level, 5 CR creature.
Okay.
That's the
At
kind
least.
level of party that it's
Right,
trying to
particularly when we're considering
Sure.
one that may be on his rite of passage hunt
Mhm.
or early in
This
his
is a young
career.
predator. This is a starting out predator.
Well, that's how we've
CR5.
seen, you know. So in the second film, Danny Glover is chasing this predator through the city. The government's chasing. It's all crazy, but he tracks him down and gets on his spaceship and does battle one-on-one combat and defeats him.
Mhm.
There's 10 other predators that have been in the room watching
Yeah.
because
Like
that
yeah.
the one that was out causing the issues, at least in the film as the antagonist, was on his rite of passage.
Mhm.
And so we can anticipate that this would be a good way to introduce a single predator as a problem, is that we've got a younger predator undergoing this ritual rite,
Mhm.
and CR5 makes sense for that.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Those of you following along at home, just want to let you know the 2 different documents that Kwynn brought about his Predator write-up are now on our I Want to Be a GM Facebook page under the Files tab. So you can get those as PDF, print them out, and
Yeah.
let your players experience the fun of fighting a Predator or a group of gremlins.
So after the predators sort of establish his hunting ground, what's the next phase that he would move into?
The next phase that should be moved into is the hook of the red herring plot. That is when the A team of the first movie is told, hey, go rescue this person, or the detective is, go find this killer. And for your party, it could be go negotiate with these elves. And I like the idea of an elvish force, because that's suitably D&D and
Right.
where I would put a predator. In deep elvish woad, miles from civilization, miles into deep wood.
Yeah,
That's where a predator would go. Yeah, elvish woad, that's where I should go.
well, and so this is also the point that we talked about earlier, where it's a twist villain.
Mm-hmm.
The party is going to do some other task.
Yes,
Um,
and you want to draw them in deep.
Right.
Survival and escape is the challenge. They can try to beat the predator, but just like get to the chopper, they're just trying to leave. They're just trying
Well,
to get out.
Eventually, it would be,
Mhm.
and ideally they would. We saw this early on in the first film. They were still trying to complete their objectives,
Mhm.
and then it became apparent that they were going to have to deal with this problem before they could even have a chance to complete their objectives.
And that's
And then they all
where
die.
the red herring plot comes in. I can
If it
also
bleeds,
see
it can
something
die.
like this being run in like Neverwinter.
Oh yeah.
Like, can you imagine the
Ooh.
predator on the obsidian towers of Neverwinter
Oh,
staring
absolutely.
down?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So
Running through Baldur's Gate.
yeah, through Baldur's Gate. So
I would say Baldur's Gate because that has Xanathar, right? This big beholder boss.
yeah.
They send down a squad of predators specifically for Xanathar.
Well-
We want that beholder.
That would be an interesting one to run across.
They
So-
are part of Xanathar's Thieves Guild, and they're just trying to protect their boss.
Oh man, that always goes well for the henchman, doesn't it?
Oh, every time.
So,
No.
all right. So, the predator would be in the area before the party, and so from the predator's perspective, the party would end.
They
Kind of
are-
this new interest.
Yes, this new interest. So they're in. I'm gonna keep using Elvish Road. So they're hunting these elves, and they're they get a mild sense of how magic works. They get a mild sense of the weapon and technology level of the area,
Mhm.
and they're like, okay, these are some challenging foes. They have some neat tricks up their sleeve. And then the party of level 5 player characters comes in, and they're like, that's not anything I've seen on this planet yet.
Right.
So the predator begins stalking the party, and we cannot be certain how long the predator was stalking anybody in either of the first 2 movies before
Right.
it decided to attack. So this whole time, just assume that the predator is quiet in the background. It's not doing anything except following the party and just
So
Watching.
stealth, move silently, climb
Mhm.
walls,
absolutely.
everything's
Yeah.
like a 99%.
Well, sure,
Mhm.
yeah, and from the second edition
Everything's got
perspective,
disadvantage. In
Right,
Savage
yeah.
Worlds, he's got -6s on being noticed. He
right,
is extremely tough.
right, and particularly with his, so we'll talk about his equipment in more detail, but he's got the invisibility cloak. It's technological in the films, but when you try to translate it into different systems, the analogy, of course, is invisibility, the spell invisibility for 5th edition.
Mhm.
If you guys are familiar with out there, I'm sure you are, how difficult it is to detect a creature that is cloaked with invisibility. You either have to have a cool trick or some sort of other magical counter.
And it technically acts as a greater invisibility, but I
Yeah.
always make sure to make that clear in the stat block and in
Yeah.
everything. It's not magic, so if anyone tries to dispel magic on him,
It's not gonna work.
it's not gonna
Right.
work.
It's not a racial trait, but it's innate to the creature, so you'll see that. But yeah, so we're stalking the party. When does the predators start to take off the weak members?
So the first thing it'll do, if it is ever available, is if the rogue wanders off. If the wizard says, I'm gonna go check out that mural over there. You guys do your shopping.
The ranger says, I'm gonna go try to gather mushrooms.
It will take its first kill of opportunity if it is handed to it on a silver platter.
Absolutely.
So, but I don't count that as its first strategic kill. That is what it's going to use to get a sense of the equipment that the party is carrying and almost like dissect.
It's a
this
research
entity.
kill, right?
Yeah.
So if I were going to go hunt elk or whatever, if you're trying to figure out what its capabilities are, you don't go for the biggest, meanest one first.
And I will say
You
that
go
before this, during the stalking section, I gave no matter what version of the rule set you're using, I gave it a mimic ability, and it is listening and identifying whose voice belongs to who.
Right.
So
They
when
can
it
do that.
marks that party member, it might try to hide that body.
It does. I remember him doing that with with them.
So that way, this party member is missing. Maybe. And it would be metagamey because you're at the table and you're like, all right, this guy, you're dead. And so now the party members have to roleplay like, we don't know he's dead.
Well, sure,
the first
You just
kill of
can't have a
opportunity, like you were talking about, the ranger's going over there to, search for tracks or do, whatever. A lot of those first kills of opportunity weren't an outright kill. He would hit them. It would do, the thieves backstab, plus 40 hit, all that kind of stuff. But they wouldn't be killed. So he would take them with him to go climb a tree somewhere so he could gut him like Jeffrey Dahmer at his leisure.
And that's where the Bolo ability comes in. He does have a weapon that allows him to drag people with no speed penalties, no climb penalties.
Here's the other thing too. From a tactics standpoint, that maybe not a kill, right? So if I've got just my party and I'm not littered with NPCs that I can kill off for theme and to drive my story forward,
also true.
Then maybe you get jumped and you get stabbed and knocked out, and then before your party has a chance to come find the the ranger that's out in the forest, he's rifled through your stuff, and then he's going to observe how the party responds to an injury.
Yes.
Does this group?
There's a great tactic.
So does this group care about one of its own? And this is we see this actually in modern militaries.
Yeah, the Viet Cong used to do that to the soldiers in Vietnam.
Right.
all the
I'm
time.
not gonna kill a guy. I'm gonna wound a guy because then I take 3 people off the battlefield.
Yeah,
Often
snipers do that in every war. They would shoot a guy, so he's laying there injured. They even did this to our guys in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And somebody has to come out and get him. Then he shoots and kills that guy. Somebody else comes out, he shoots and kills that guy.
Right. So he can turn one target into many, or he can hamper a group by now they have to care for this injury.
Yes.
And so, if you're dealing with just a group of players and you don't want to start eliminating people, that could be something that could be done that now starts to amp up the feeling of dread. What got you? I don't know. Well, you're really effed up. So now we've got we've reduced their resources, and we still have to complete our mission. But now we know that something else is out here.
So I think if they actually broke the encounter off at that time, if the party had a way to teleport home, and they got somebody that's really tore up, and they got these, we saw this creature do this and this and this, and everybody's going through their minds, what kind of monster did this? And then all of a sudden, you know what they're developing? they're developing a legion, a legend of some new demon that has spawned forth
That
onto
is
this
also
plane of
true.
existence.
Now, I need to disagree with one point here.
Yeah.
The Predator has the Assassinate feature, which lets him do critical hits on creatures which are either surprised or haven't moved yet.
Well, it says
and his
sure.
Plasma Caster does 5d10 plus 10 damage. Do with that what you will.
Yeah.
well, this is
I will be blowing holes through people.
because you're yes. But that's the other
I'm evil.
that's the other way to play it if you want something that's a little bit more deadly.
I
for
would
sure.
He is.
for a one shot is basically the intent because I
Right,
cannot
right.
imagine springing a Predator in my very serious D&D
Oh,
game.
man.
Not at all.
Like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, you can play your characters, but it's Halloween and none of this is going to be
Here's-
canon.
here's
I'm
where
gonna
I-
kill all of you.
Here's where I enjoyed bringing predators or aliens in
Mhm.
my Star Wars games.
Oh, yes.
Because now they have a level of technology comparable and they still have no idea what's going on.
Yep.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
But particularly to your point, yeah, they can if there's some way for them to disengage, that can sort of hamper the one shot. But it can definitely add thematic elements to your world setting if you do something like that, and it sticks.
They go back to the tavern, and it's a small town, and they throw their bloody body down of their friend who's barely alive. Go get the healer. Go get and then like, what happened to your friend? This demon from hell with red flashing eyes.
Well, that's even
He
assuming.
scooped him up with a sword, and he was vanished.
Well, and that's even assuming that they see him because he can still attack from cloak.
Yes.
So the wounds are like that would be the examining the wounds. Like I've only ever seen this in books talking about demon claws or large, like this sort of stuff, but none of that exists in that region. So what kind of new monster?
And that's also why
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with
Yeah.
with how the Predator is depicted in the second movie and how I would run him in big cities
Oh,
of D&D
for sure.
campaigns. Because you're good aligned player characters,
Yeah.
if you have them, they're gonna engage with this fight. Someone's gonna get murked, and they're gonna be like, okay, well they're not attacking anymore, so let's go get this person to a healer. And of course the Predator's not gone. He's waiting. He's following. Oh,
Yeah.
you're taking him to this healer? Guess who's gonna die next?
Right.
Black.
Which amps up the threat.
Now the
and-
town cleric's dead.
But this is the other thing. You and I talked about this a little bit. When you get to ramp up the intensity, particularly of the predator encounter, I would start limiting the availability of rests.
Yes.
Oh,
Limiting
absolutely.
resources.
You are not gonna
You're
take a
not
12-hour rest with a predator chasing you through the woods.
No.
Right. I don't care what your
Not
watch
even
is.
in town. Not even in town.
No,
You're not going to be able to sleep. No long rests for you.
When we see this with Danny Glover's character, where
Because he's
as the
looking for opportunities to get you.
it
If you
becomes-
have one person, like, because, D&D parties, they leave one person on watch through the night and assume that's okay. What happens when he dies quietly?
well, the one person on watch is okay against like wolves and badgers, but
Not against the predator.
it's just quite way higher level than a wolf
And
or badger.
I specifically made him CR5 because I believe that's when you unlock your third level slots.
Yeah.
And that's when you get Liamon's tiny hut.
Yes.
And I was like, yes. So that's why I gave him his laser mines.
Yeah.
So the whole point of that is like, oh, you put up Layman's tiny hut. I'm gonna put a mine on top of that. Have fun when you wake up in the morning.
And this is why people don't play with Kwynn. No, Savage
They
Worlds.
do play with me, and they love playing with me. I'm right.
No, there he goes.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Oh man.
Something else.
So I see here. This is a
Hello, newbie.
yeah, Newt. It's something else. You're welcome. So it's good to see you on the stream. We appreciate it.
Bye.
So yeah, but that is the fun thing about the Predator is when you're in your obviously when you're playing your D&D or Savage Worlds campaign, you want this to be a continuous story. You kill everybody with a Predator.
Yeah,
It kind
and
of-
also just the idea of taking your high fantasy D&D
Oh,
game
sure.
and going Predator. Because it
Well,
doesn't. You gotta make that an isolated.
PSR
incident.
was like high fantasy D&D game, Spelljammer. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they gave it to us.
If you play Spelljammer, you gotta add the Predator.
Yeah.
Well, I'm considering it.
And,
now.
well, if you're playing Spelljammer, instead of gremlins, you have to add critters. Because critters are aliens.
Critters from
Were
space.
aliens
Yeah, they were
from
from
space. Yeah,
And we'll get to covering them. They're definitely a very scary swarm type monster.
they are.
But
They just want to eat you.
let's see. As someone who loves to play the healer,
Oh, yeah.
this premise is terrifying. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't get
no.
shot by the predator.
Yeah, and so actually, so that comes down to my I believe it's part 2 or 3 in my document that I
Yeah.
wrote up. It's the Predator's first actual strategic kill. It's not an opportunity kill.
Right when
It
he
is the
gets,
Predator has determined this person needs to go.
and so at this point, he's shifted his focus from observation
Mm-hmm.
and research into
It's
I'm going to
obtained
take.
enough information where it's like, okay, now I gotta
Right,
start.
I'm
doing
going to take my
Yeah.
prize now.
He's
Mhm.
developed his plan. There's 10 people in front of me. I want to kill them all. How do I do it?
stuff. Mhm.
Right, and
Which
so
one has to die first?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So typically in games that don't have a healer role, like Savage Worlds or even Call of Cthulhu, that's gonna be whoever can put out the most damage.
the,
Yeah.
the biggest
He
threat.
takes out the guy with the minigun first in the movie.
Yeah.
So he's gonna go after that. And if your party doesn't have like a extremely skilled healer, like when the Predator does take that opportunity to stab a guy but just wound him and kill him, if nobody can get that guy back up to full with one casting, the Predator's not gonna prior. But if that person goes, I heal thee, and that person is up and ready to go, the Predator is immediately gonna know they gotta go.
Particularly when because we're one versus many.
There
Elimination.
should be a good end where the heroes are so pathetic the Predator fucks off and kills somebody else. See, the problem is your players need to identify that is the problem before they cast Fireball twice.
Has he seen Predator?
Yeah.
'cause
Connor? Oh yeah, we actually
Because I don't know that the Predator would just like. Oh,
Well,
fuck these guys and kill
we've
somebody else.
seen this particularly. So it was brought about as the Aliens vs Predator comics explored their culture,
Mhm.
and we saw that brought into the film Aliens vs Predator. There's the old scientist who had funded the expedition to whatever they found under the ice,
and he had cancer.
and he had cancer
And
so,
no weapons.
and no weapons. So the Predator was originally going to let him be because there was no value and no honor in that.
He's not.
And
a
then the
threat,
guy attacked him.
Yep, and the Predator turned around like, all right,
And it
I
was-
guess so.
Yeah, he's like, okay, so now you've made yourself a worthy foe. You are something to be considered, and he
And
dealt with him.
I'm so glad that the Predator is established to be an honor killing
Yes.
kind of entity by the second movie, because there is that scene in the second movie where there's a kid with a toy gun. It's a
Yeah.
toy gun.
Yeah.
And he sees the Predator and the Predator sees him and the kid points the gun and the sweat down your face like, is the Predator gonna count this? Does
Yeah,
this
yeah.
count?
Yeah,
Is he gonna take
Yeah.
this as a threat? And of course the Predator doesn't. He's just like,
because he recognized it.
right.
As
Yeah,
not a real weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he classified a toy. But he recognized it was not a real weapon.
and he
Yeah,
probably
of no
also, like, in some logical way went, that is a tiny human. Probably an infant or child.
yeah. Like that, it didn't register on his.
Yeah, just,
But-
eh.
So
So
Fine.
for sure,
he scanned him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I don't know about the good ending because if you can put up enough of a fight and still be
And-
dragging
but
yourself
that's-
away,
That's the
you know,
point of the
like-
Predator stalking them for the first day and a half to see
Yeah.
if these guys can cast magic missile, firebolt. He'll see the barbarian rage at least once. He'll see the paladin
Oh my
might at
God.
least once.
yeah,
You'll see a
He's
barbarian.
going to know that they are good targets.
In Predator, the first movie, I don't remember the character's name, but he was the Indian guy. He stood at the bridge.
Billy.
Billy. He took off his flak vest. He threw off his
Yeah.
dog tags. And he cut himself with his knife. And he was going to stand his ground and he was going to charge and fight.
hmm
You
Yeah.
don't even get to see the fight. It's
No,
on
don't even
screen.
see
You
the
just hear him
fight.
scream.
So that to me is a barbarian doing his mental
Oh,
prep.
for the rage.
It's with a rage.
The
and all
barbarian
that.
was ready, and
Right.
you just heard a scream.
He was ready.
Thought he-
Thought he was
he
ready.
was ready. He was as ready as he could be
So-
until plasma cast.
All he could do was scream.
Did he kill him or did he make him his girlfriend?
No, he killed him.
Well, I'd like to imagine that absolutely the Predator was like, all right, I'll duel you.
Yeah.
Sure.
He's like, oh, you only got one knife. Ka-ching, I got two. So Yeah.
But that was definitely the barbarian prepping for rage.
Yep.
So we've seen examples of a lot of the different characters. I would call Jesse Ventura's character with the minigun an artificer.
Well, he didn't do the construction, but he was a heavy weapons guy.
Yes.
So he would be equivalent to the fighter that brings the great sword.
Yeah.
You know, when everyone else has either rapiers or sword and shield, the guy with the great sword
Is the guy with the minigun.
it stands out.
Now in
Or-
Savage
yeah, or
Worlds, that's just going to be the guy with the minigun. He's going to have a minigun in Savage Worlds.
Yeah, this is true. So that he gets to the point he takes out, he starts resource elimination and takes out the most problematic target first. How would he progress from there?
From there, it's going to be essentially repeating that same step as though
He's gonna work. He's got a
he's
list
got
of
his
priorities.
List of priorities.
And he's like, that's power number 1, power number 2.
Yep, exactly.
Which it seems to be the same mistake.
Mixing in the opportunity attacks.
Right.
Now, eventually, and I do write about this, I call it Part 4, Enough is Enough, the Party Fights Back. That is the scene in The Predator where they lay out the trap overnight,
Right.
and
The big net trap.
yep,
and
the
all
big
that.
old net trap. So the
Yep.
party is eventually going to be like, well, why can't we just fight this guy?
Yeah.
Well, because they realize if we don't, he's going to kill us all.
So there you go. And so the Predator, if the party doesn't do anything, we'll just repeat that process until everyone's dead.
Right. He'll get his trophies.
Yes.
Yep.
So it is kind of up to the player. Like, that is the Predator's win condition. That is his strategy.
Yeah.
He will keep doing that. It is up to the players and their own creativity to break that pattern and try to find a way out. In the first movie, these men were very proficient in making improvised traps. I know that D&D and even Savage Worlds doesn't have that much of a robust trap system, but you know, reward creativity, let them work on it, and no matter, and this is going to be controversial, I talked about this in the car, the Predator should always fall for the first trap. Yeah, because that's part of building tension. You need a release, and that is going to be their point of hope. Like, we got this guy.
You're like, oh, we can do something.
In exchange, so the Predator has fallen for a trap. In exchange, stop tracking hit points. The Predator's going to get away. Let him cut through them, take all the damage, write down how much damage he takes. And, you know, the Predator in the D&D stat block, he has 96 hit points. If he takes 150 points of damage, cool, he gets away. He cuts through the trap and he gets away. And now the party's thinking this guy has more than 150 points of damage. When he comes back, he's going to be beaten and bruised and bloodied at only 96 hit points.
He does have a healer's kit.
He does, and I am so mad at myself for forgetting to write that down.
Ah,
Right.
I remember because he does it in both movies, in both of the first movies.
I love it in the second
I
movie.
put it in Savage Worlds.
He had to improvise some. You know, he got his arm cut off, and he like uses bathroom tile and crunches that up.
because he
Then
needs-
he has this blue goo,
And it
sticks
turns
in-
it green.
Yeah,
Smears it
and
on.
smears it on, screams. So evidently it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Predator screams every time he heals himself because apparently their species is so advanced and has invented interstellar travel and yet has not invented anesthetic.
I read a thing once that said they didn't invent it, but they stole it from another race
Probably.
and basically hunted that other race until they're all gone.
Yep.
And hey, but we got your car.
That would make a
So-
little bit of sense. So definitely some interesting stuff there. That covers sort of like the play out. So let's go into the specifics of the stats that you homebrewed
Yes.
and give us an idea of what we'd be looking at when it comes to facing the Predator.
So
I got his write-ups on I Want to Be a GM Facebook page under the Files tab.
So and also tell us a little bit when you get there about the website you used because it's got the 5th edition style stat block, which I really enjoy.
Mhm.
And I know there's several of them out there that do it. I just want to know about the one you chose to do.
I cannot remember the one.
Oh, you cannot remember the one. All right.
But hey, it was as simple as Googling 5e stat block generator and clicking the first result.
There you go. So click on the first results, boys and girls.
Yep.
Google demands it.
Yeah.
All right. So as for the stats, I threw things at the wall and went, yeah, that looks cool. I give him 15 d8 plus 8 hit points. for a total of 97 hit points. So he's got 15 hit dice. I figured, well, if I'm making him for a level 5 party and I want him to withstand at least a party of 3, that's 15 hit dice.
It's pretty fair. It should make him beefy enough to be a threat.
I gave him a speed of 30 feet and a climb speed of 30 feet. He has a strength 18, dex 16, con 14. So for his physical stats, we know that the Predator is going to be bigger than an average human. He is stronger than he is fast, and I know that took me a while because I was like, yeah, but he's like the ultimate rogue, but he's still super huge. He takes on Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, so when you're dealing with the Predator's race relative to humans, which is in 5th edition, base human tends across the board, stronger, faster, more dexterous,
yes,
and more hardy.
Yes.
And so that's where those physical stats are going to represent
that's where the
that.
18 strength, 14 con, and slightly unpopular opinion is that the Predator is kind of a glass cannon in a way. That's why they supplement their bulky bodies with so much stealth-enhancing gear, because they don't have that many hit points and they're not all that agile. Yes, they can climb, they can swing. They are still very agile. But that is definitely not their core. That is all training.
I'm sure getting shot for you is going to be just as painful as getting shot for them. You know? They don't want to take
as for their intelligence stats, I gave their charisma a base +0. That's a 10 charisma. Less to do with their appearance and more to do with the fact that I don't really understand charisma in 5th edition. Like, I don't know what it's supposed to be other than appearance. Because I know there are saving throws for charisma. That's got to be important. So let's give them a 10 and just call it good.
Charisma should be, or we tend to handle charisma as force of personality, not necessarily connected to physical attractiveness or state of being.
Yeah.
So physical attractiveness is called comeliness, which is a stat done away with back in 3rd.
Right, but so now, when we're dealing with charisma, it tends to be force of personality.
Yes.
So having seen the Predators interact with humans in certain films and comic books, we might consider them to be sort of cold. They're very direct. They can be they're very focused on what they do, and so in that regard, they can be a little harder to deal with on an interpersonal level. So 10 seems fair, maybe an 8, but pretty basic. But you can talk with them. You can get along with them. They can accept you into their communities.
So you can have, like Aliens versus Predators, where they're in the Mayan temple, Antarctica.
Yeah.
Him and that girl had a very good understanding.
Yeah.
And a certain level of communication. And once she caught on, you got to teach me how to survive, or I'm going to be, lunch meat for these things. And he taught her a few tricks. So there is a certain level there.
And they do have an intelligence of 16 because they are a spacefaring race.
Right. They're super smart, and their wisdom makes a lot of sense. They spend so much time observing, developing strategy, and learning from mistakes that high wisdom definitely, I think, marks them, and is probably one of the things that makes them so deadly.
I had given them advantage on Dex and Constitution saving throws, as well as the skills Acrobatics, Athletics, Stealth, and Survival. They're immune to the frightened condition.
They don't care about you.
Unless it's a gremlin.
Oh no, Predators versus Gremlins!
They speak Utja, and they have dark vision up to 120 feet with a passive perception of 12.
Now, is that their base race, or is that their equipment?
That is their base race. Okay. Their thermal vision is where it gets insane. Provides the Predator with dark vision out to 120 feet, and allows the Predator to see warm targets, ignoring concealment and invisibility.
There we go.
If you cast invisibility and you are still a warm-blooded target, he can see you.
They had that one scene where they're in the meat warehouse, where he would go every week to eat after he hunted. And the FBI team that was after him, they set it all up using ultraviolet light. Because they knew somehow, they figured out he could see infrared. And so the Predator, though, he couldn't hear anybody. He didn't know what was going on. But when he got up there and he was making his way around the warehouse, something caught his eye. And he's like, that's not quite right. And so he started going through the different
vision modes.
Different vision modes. And he finally got to ultraviolet. And shing, there they were. He's like, oh, something's up. And
so feel free to pull whatever perception-based bowl that you need to pull.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
but
so-
I've made
Now-
a ghillie suit, and you're
I
hot.
did-
and he ate you.
I did write in the write up in the document that a character who spends an action can give themselves, I believe in 5th edition I gave it a -2
Yeah.
to being seen if they coat themselves in a cold material, whether that
Like
be
mud.
snow or mud,
Yeah.
up to a maximum penalty of like a -10.
Sure. Depending
For
on
Savage Worlds, because they have 3 actions, I only made it a -1 per action, but that's because you can
Right.
do it 3 times in one turn. Just
That's a lot of mud.
yes, a lot.
Rambo style.
As for their individual abilities and
Oh,
actions,
just
what I miss.
Mr. Producer over there again.
yep.
The Bardy befriends the Predator, and the Bard has woohoo with it.
There's a lot of bards out. There's a lot of bards out there with some ugly children. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wait, you don't have a D20 up here anywhere?
Well,
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah, it's in jail.
It's in jail. I'm taking it out of jail.
So, just want to let you guys know this dice jail provided to us by the Hoarding Dragon. Check out their stuff. There's a 3D printed dice jail, multiple colors, and some really cool dice bags. So,
I'm rolling to seduce the Predator.
oh,
7.
yeah,
So-
you die.
No, yeah, you get shoulder blasted. That's why this die is in prison.
You
Find
not only
yourself being hung
not only
upside
do
down from a
you-
tree.
fail, but he uses a shoulder blaster.
His absolute longest ability is his mimic on the stat sheet. I'm gonna read this verbatim.
Okay.
The Predator can mimic any sound it hears immediately. So it's kind of like a Kenku in that way.
Yeah.
And given an hour of listening and an hour of work on its PDA, it can perfectly mimic anyone's speech or animal sound and speak through it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
It does that, that classic sci-fi thing where you listen to an hour of someone talking,
Yeah.
and then you do the and you can just say anything.
Mhm.
Anyone who hears the mimic ability mimics someone they know to be dead must make a DC 14 Wisdom save or become frightened. If the mimic is of someone who is alive, but the creature has no way of verifying its authenticity, must make a DC 14 Intelligence save or become confused.
There you
I
go.
slightly modify confusion where if they roll a 7 or an 8 instead of making a melee attack for no reason, they instead act as though they rolled a 1, which is movement in a random direction. But if confusion forces the creature to move, they move toward the sound regardless of direction indicated.
There you go.
So that is when in Predator, when it's hearing
Yeah.
the party when they first attack the village, and he hears the African American actor whisper "over here," and then later in the movie that comes back, except it's not the Predator's mimic ability, and it was just perfectly like built up. So
Oh.
you think it's the mimic, but he's actually hiding and telling. I gave him like 7 levels of rogue, so he has sneak attack. Wrist blades only 46. Assassinate, the evasion ability, which is if he would make a dex check, he takes no damage on a successful day save. Half on a failed.
That's good against those random fireball shots.
Like, I don't know where he is, but he's somewhere up there.
The forest is on fire.
And that is kind of that scene in the Predator
Yeah.
when they pick up the minigun after the minigun got dice, and they just
Yeah, they just take out.
and the Predator's like, nope. And that's another thing I cover. The Predator will run away.
Yeah.
The wrist blades are very simple. They're basically just either long or short swords. But on hit, the target is also grappled, and that's kind of the impale and lift up.
Yeah.
The combo stick is just a spear.
But it's a cool spear.
It is a cool spear that you can fold up and conceal. The bolo shot, that one is important. It's got a range of 4160. The target is restrained and dragged. I specifically chose 35 feet because that is 5 feet faster than the average party member can move without taking a dash action. So now they have to spend their action to do something,
Well,
and that
No, I remember he did that
Yeah.
to somebody, grappled their feet, and he took off. And then, like, the guys came after him to get him, and just as they went to grab him, shoom, he takes off on the ground.
Yeah, because
Or he's being dragged.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, that sucks for him.
the bolos require a DC 15 strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check to free themselves. Other creatures can attempt to free the creature using athletics. The net gun. This one is the scary one.
That was a
Yeah,
cool weapon.
dude.
DC 14 dex save. On failure, the target is restrained and takes 1d6 slashing damage. At the beginning of the predator's next turn, the restrained creature takes 2d6 slashing damage, and damage increases 1d6 every round thereafter.
Yeah.
And I feel like I went a little heavy on this, but it does so little damage that I'm totally fine with it. The net has 40 HP and a DR of 5, damage resistance of 5. So any damage under 5 does no damage to the net, and it subtracts 5 damage from anything.
Yeah, it's like a...
So, well, we saw that when somebody gets trapped, a Marine goes over, takes his knife, tries to cut the net.
It cuts the knife.
It cuts the knife.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty serious. And the only, so we ended up with an interesting crosshatch pattern on the head of an alien
Yes.
xenomorph
Uh-huh.
in Alien vs Predator
It melted the rope.
Yep. It melted.
because it melted the rope. But you know, if it wasn't for their specific anatomy, that would have cubed him.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It was,
It would have made appetizer-sized bits of alien.
They also have as a bonus action a smart disc that they
Yeah.
can throw out to defeat. It's super weird. So it requires a DC 14. That's where the F was coming.
yes.
DC 14 dex save. You just take a D10 slashing damage on failure, but the smart disc has 20 HP, DR of 5, and can move 20 feet and attack as a bonus action for the predator. It's a spiritual weapon for the predator. That's
Oh, there you
exactly
go.
how it works.
It's a frisbee of death.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting to make it.
It's like a spiritual hammer because
Yes.
he controls it. Go and attack that guy,
Exactly.
and then come back.
Exactly.
Right, without necessarily having to make an attack
Right,
roll for it,
Because
or you
it's-
treat it as a second.
because it's a drone frisbee of death.
Yeah.
Go and come back.
And then last but not least, the shortest ability of the predator,
Oh
the
yeah.
plasma caster.
Oh,
+6 versus AC, range 50, 200, 2d10 plus 10 force damage. But it recharges at the end of the predator's next turn, so he skips a turn.
Right.
every time.
So it's able to fire every other turn.
Yep.
Mhm.
The predator will not use the caster in melee combat. He would prefer to use his wrist blades. And it's not written here, and I wish I could edit it, but I'm just going to put it as an errata in the page. Is that I decided that if the predator would receive a critical hit, he can negate the damage and destroy his plasma caster.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. So, the armor of the predator is a little bit interesting in that it's covered in some of his tools.
yes.
And so it's not like regular plate mail where I go up and I have to beat either through it, defeat the armor to damage you, or beat it off of you, or whatever it is. So, yeah, to be able to negate the hit and call it damage to the equipment on the exterior of the armor is pretty interesting mechanic. So, it can be one of the things that you can use as you're amping up the danger, or you're trying to get a win for the party. And you can just change the tone of the fight, like, oh, you guys have damaged this, and then they find the unit left behind as the predator's made his escape from this particular encounter. So now
DC 20 check for the artificer to repair it.
oh gosh, I wouldn't think in the middle of the forest that you'd have the power source needed, but
You guys have a couple squirrels together.
to get some scrolls to go. But the idea is, you know, like if you're starting to knock pieces off, it lets the party start to learn more about what's been attacking them. But it also changes the tone because now it's going to be melee combat and traps from here on out.
And it should always be using traps, just because it's
Mhm.
interesting. Mix it up a bit.
So I didn't not hear you describe yet the final weapon that the predator has at his arsenal. What did you forget?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's right.
Self-destruct mode.
I'm not
Arnold
gonna
can out-
lie.
Arnold Schwarzenegger outran a nuclear blast.
That is true. I am not gonna lie. Totally forgot that.
What?
I totally forgot about it until literally right this second.
It's the end of like 4 different movies.
I'm totally right. In my brain, I'm like, that's clearly a set piece. I don't need to write anything about that.
So
Quinn's brain.
Oh no, this thing hasn't paid rent in
no,
years.
the
So,
pilot lights out. Yeah.
I would treat that as white box fireball.
Well, it's
You-
more than that.
You got well, no, exact, but
All you have to do is go into your magic collection
no.
and pull out Wrath of
I
God.
know. I know.
seriously,
I know.
stop it. White box fireball said everything in the radius is destroyed, not on fire, not
That
burnt,
is-
not
that is-
takes damage, is destroyed.
That is correct.
So with the countdown, set your radius. Can your player character, move out of that radius before detonation or get destroyed?
Okay.
I
I
would
would offer
I would make it
more detailed description if I might. Back in second edition, we had all kinds of random tables for different things,
Sure.
and one of them was put out in Dragon Magazine for dealing a lot of damage. And one of them says, "Roll all dice within 30 feet for damage."
That would be fun. And we have in Star Wars for setting explosives and things, you'll have your primary blast area and then a secondary damage radius from there that's supposed to account
These
for pressure waves.
grognards want you to roll for damage.
No,
It's a nuclear bomb. Everything
Yeah.
dies. It is a skill challenge. Yes, sir.
So, Death Knights throughout all of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff have basically it's a racial ability. It's a fireball on drugs basically. The first time that it actually has you deal damage with that ability, it's a 20d6 fireball.
that's just a high number of damage.
Everything. I don't care if there is an ancient worm black dragon that was flying by at the time. If it's caught in the radius, it dies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And it's
that
force
has that
damage,
description
not
in
fire
5th
damage.
Edition, so it already has the giant explosive in 5th edition, so you can.
It,
Make
it might be
force damage.
it might
'cause
be-
I cannot perceive what entity would be immune to a fire like a nuclear bomb.
no, for sure. That's the biggest damage of the explosion is the force that it. I mean, we've seen it level entire
Yeah,
forests.
exactly. Just-
This is where I would take my inspiration from the white box and just call it destroyed.
yeah,
Yeah.
destroyed.
And so, or you could go and say
This radius,
the smaller radius destroyed. This
Atoms.
larger radius takes some damage, and then outside of that, you're safe. However you want to deal with it thematically, but don't forget, Quinn, that they can blow up themselves with this self-destruct device
while they're laughing.
while they're laughing. Yeah, laying there, bleeding, laughing, and exploding half of the
And
forest.
he called it, ugly motherfucker.
Yes, well, that's always fun too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Similar to that, yes.
So that predator, so now we've gone lighthearted, chaotic, and then we've gone full on Mercury party in the jungle.
This is TPK man right here.
I was known for it. My original Discord tagline was "Merciless DM."
So there we go.
I thought our next monster was the TPK monster.
Yes. Well,
Well, it can be. Yeah.
now I want to talk a little bit about some of the things else that you can find out there that are a little more classic. Mr. Producer, have you got me set up on the pedestal over there?
I do.
All right.
With a
So
microphone?
what we found here is this write-up for Jason Voorhees from the film series, of course, Jason.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, sorry. But there's, he's got alternate forms, full-on stat blocks, saving throws. That is, his first ability should tell you everything you need to know about why you don't want to fight these guys.
Is the mic on? Okay.
Detect life. Jason can magically sense the presence of living creatures up to 30 feet away. You can't hide from him. So,
No.
-5 penalty on attack rolls and a +10 bonus on damage rolls. With the 22 strength and a +6 to start with. Oh, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. My bad.
All right, it's no good. Fear auras, lay trap, regeneration. This particular one we wanted to bring up as an example because it was well put together.
Very well put together.
So
Yeah,
here,
I've come across several
Late trap.
like this where other people on the internet be real clever with movie monsters or other monsters or creatures from different
Yeah.
games.
we've seen a lot of different Cenobite stat blocks for either creating your own or taking the movie monsters themselves from Hellraiser. The Graboids we talked about, I've seen the life cycle statted for them. We've even seen more lighthearted things, Cerberus pups, Displacer kittens, Those things are out there. We've used them in some of our games already.
Yep. love 'em.
But you're like, okay, Jason, Freddy Krueger. I don't think I've seen the Jin yet from Wishmaster,
Ooh.
and that's going to be different than a different flavor than you'd find in any monster manual. That one's really cool. We'll talk a little bit more about him, but do some searching on the internet and grab either find something that works for you that somebody else has done, or it can inspire you to put your own monsters together or your own flavors for these monsters. Because there's Jason from the original set of films, and then we get all the way to Jason X, Jason in Space. So, where his dead body is reanimated with nanite technology and
The cyborg.
space machete. Why did they have a space machete? But they did. Yeah.
For D&D flavoring, if you wanted to have him in your campaign, you could put him into the Blood Wars because Jason goes to hell.
Jason does go to hell.
He did. He
Yeah.
did.
So
And they didn't want him.
No.
they didn't. He was too bad for hell.
They saw that was a mistake. Yeah.
But Michael Myers, recently we just got Halloween Ends, which was really good actually, if you guys haven't seen it yet. So I think that's 35 years of that
I
franchise.
think maybe 40. It's
Um,
up there.
what was the actress's name? I just had it. and
Jamie
lost it.
Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis has done
Scream Queen.
that role since its inception.
Yep.
I think the first one was 78.
70 something, yeah.
Yeah. So it's always been her, and it's always been Michael Myers. That character's brother. So there's sure to be a lot of those stats out there to find. And if you're interested in it, check out the film. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Michael Myers.
So, part of this too, I want to segue into presenting these scenarios. We've had some interesting things that have come to the table, but Troy, this is something we've talked with a lot of GMs about generally. So it's explaining what's happening versus describing what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
So as an example, you find yourself going down the corridor. It's about 10 feet wide. Goes out to the 60 feet, your cone of vision, and kind of disappears into darkness. Versus the stone under your feet is slightly uneven, and the light of your torch only pierces the darkness to about 60 feet or so. In the distance, you can hear what may be the shuffling or tumbling of rocks and the drip of water. Just from that, hopefully you get an idea of, okay, I'm in the dungeon versus I'm in the dungeon. When you're dealing with monsters of icon like the Predator, like Jason Voorhees, being able to set those scenes and develop the correct tone before you spring these on your party is going to be one of the things that's going to make or break these sort of horror-themed games.
Yeah, you definitely want to give them some flavor of it so that they get a good impression of what they're up against. Not just if it's a monster of some type that's about to take the ranger in the front, take his head off with an axe that has ready.
Yeah.
There's also little subtle things that you can throw in there so that the person at the front, as you're looking at these stones and you feel them under your feet, as you go to put your left foot down to take your next stealthy step, you feel the stone shift under your foot.
Yes.
The light ahead.
That's exactly what they do.
Exactly what they do. So just little things like that add to the flavor of the moment that your players are going to react to.
Mhm.
And then they're going to hang on every word that you're saying next. Because usually at that point or a few lines after, I go, what are you going to do? And they're like, I take up my foot?
Yeah. Cinematography is one of the things that made these films.
Talking about. I'm gonna keep walking.
Well, the cinematography is part of what made these movies so good. The earlier Halloween in particular, there's so much hard shadow, so they've got bright direct light from the outside of the house to create a door outline into the dark hallway, and so literally they can have the characters step into the light with hard shadows. It makes it very dramatic. You can't see anything until they reveal it. Being able to set that picture in your player's mind is going to be those things that bring you the payoff.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly with the reveal of the Predator before he finally decloaks.
Yep, that shimmer.
And,
You gotta
oh,
get that shimmer down
Yeah.
descriptively.
So what we're
Look
talking
up
about
in-
now with describing the scene, regardless of your style of play, if you have tables with awesome minis that any Warhammer 40K guy would fight you for, or if you have a 60-inch blue screen on the table, you got the projector behind you showing your monsters on the other wall, or you're just doing theater of the mind, and you have a piece of paper and you're drawing X's and O's on it for your monsters and your party. You need to learn how to set that stage so as they walk into that room or into the hall or just going into the next down a well-traveled path.
Yeah.
A lot of the footsteps that you can see still in the mud, some remind you of horses, some remind you of deer, others look like they're chasing something with large feet with claws.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on a well-traveled path that has a lot of flavor to it. Doesn't mean that necessarily there's something waiting to kill them, but it added to that moment instead of just going on a path.
Gwydian's really good on this. He
He's
likes to
really good
use descriptors that bring in other senses. My
Yes.
example had sight and sound, but don't forget you've got taste. The air can change. Maybe
The-
something smells so bad you can taste it.
Or
You know,
just
that's,
a cold breeze comes
yeah,
whooshing down the hall.
the way you can feel it, a chill up your
Mhm.
spine. Something's got you on edge. Not necessarily where your character's anxious, but their hair's standing up. Your danger senses are going off. You know, these sort of cues, these can really get your players into the mindset of doubt. You know, what's coming? What am I looking for? What's out there? When they don't know, that doubt is where these guys reside, and then when you finally reveal them, that's when you get that payoff.
I see that there's two types of players that, in my opinion, is more important and more critical to get as flamboyant as you can behind the screen. I mean, even so far as to at one time I used to have different hats because there's a lot of NPCs in a town, and there's the easiest way for me to keep a visual reminder. So how to do a little improv on the character. I had different hats that I put on, and the players knew, oh, that hat is so and so, and that hat is so and so. When you have a new player at the table, I mean, new to the game, this is his first night. He doesn't know what the dice mean. The more flamboyant you are behind the screen, the more you're going to grab that person and keep them in the game for life. Because they're like, this is better than any movie I've been to. This is awesome. We killed the bad guy. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Then you also have your experienced player that's been playing for 20 plus years. And if you can put on a good show for them, then all of their experience is going to come to the table because they know what you're doing. And when the rest of the party, or the players, I should say, look to him for, hey, you've been playing for 30 years. What kind of monster is this? I don't know. It's pretty ugly, isn't it?
Right.
He knows the hit die. He knows the special attacks. He knows its special defenses. But he is going to add into this theater of the mind and play it up because that's the game that most of them, I'll say, enjoy.
Yeah.
They want that role play aspect. And if you can do it for the new player and you can do it for the old player, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it for everybody else. If you develop that kind of game, you'll have players seeking you out to find spot on your table.
And be killed by Jason Voorhees.
And be
Or
killed by
be killed by your
Definitely
predators.
to be killed by the
Definitely
and they will rock on, telling all their friends.
Evaporated.
He killed all of us with a predator. We never saw him.
So blew my head off at the neck.
That will develop stories that will, last for years. And your players,
Yeah.
you give them a good game, they're going to come back for more. And that's what we all want. We want players that are going to come back next week, next month, and keep the game going.
Yeah.
So the more that you can do that, the better off your game will be. Now, I'm going to throw a couple of suggestions out there. How do you get there? You say, Troy, I can't do that. And I say, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
I'm going to tell you 2 easy ways to do this. One, read some books, fantasy fiction, science fiction. It doesn't matter what it is. It will give you ways to describe things. When they go into the opening line of a story, they always have a way to put you as the reader into that setting.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the book is, just read anything. The other thing that I did that helped my game a lot, both as a player, but especially as a DM, I took a summer course for creative writing. It cost a little bit of money, but my writing as a DM and my presentation as a DM really improved. Because all of those little things, like how to put together, how to build a story, some of those things that I learned in that session, we use in our classes on how to be a better DM. And presentation really picks it up.
Yeah, and then the other I'll add suggestion is watch good dungeon masters.
Oh, there's tons.
People like Critical Role because that's a great game to watch.
Matt Mercer,
100%.
Ton
It
of-
gets you in it.
Oh yeah, and there's a
Oh, yeah.
bunch of them out there. So find the guys that are playing the game you like in the style that fits best with yours, and learn from
go to YouTube and watch everything that says Matt Mercer on it.
them.
He is really good.
Not season 3.
Not
Season 2 was the best. Season 3.
But that's the thing. This is why I
mood
say
change.
this
It's
is
a
why I
funny
say
game now.
find the DM that fits with your style
Yeah.
and learn from them. Because where
That-
I run
that's
a
true.
I run a sci-fi game, and the way I do things may or may not work for your fantasy game. I feel like I'm a pretty good GM, but if my advice doesn't suit you, then it doesn't suit you. So find the people that are out there doing what works or can help address areas that you feel you want to improve on.
Everybody has a different game.
Yeah.
And you'll
So,
have players that like it, you have players that won't just care for your style. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how true to the book you are, or if you have rewrites for every silly thing. Everybody at the table has to like the game that they're playing. They have to know the accepted rules going into it. When I make my character, I'm going to get this fability.
Sure.
Just anything.
Yeah, and
So,
absolutely, and that's where we were definitely glad to have Kwynn here show us a little bit earlier about Savage Worlds.
Mhm.
Now we didn't talk too much about it as a system, but again, that customization, it's a highly customizable, not theme dependent, so you can flavor it any way you
Yep.
want.
This book, its gear is split from medieval to
they're available in the
modern to
lobby on your way out of the
futuristic.
theater today for $10.95.
Well, not $10.95. This one actually ran
probably
me,
30.
Yeah, $30.
Yeah.
Or easy payments.
Or easy payments at $10.95. Yeah.
Although you could pick up the PDF on peginc.com for about $20, which is, and by the way, Peg Inc. It's Pinnacle Entertainment Group.
Yeah. So, but again, it's all different thematically, even when you're dealing with a game system that's as free form as this, because you ran it, your brother who also runs in
He
it,
is running it.
you guys run
and,
different
yeah,
games.
Our guy Carmu on Discord is also running it, and they're all different. Carmu is running this very emotionally tense high fantasy adventure. My brother is running a slapstick sci-fi game.
Yeah.
And the last time I ran this, we were pirates on an alien world.
So
Yep, sea pirates on an alien world that was slowly flooding. There was a portal between the bottom of Earth's ocean and this world in the form of a storm. All the water on Earth was draining, and this world was being flooded by Earth's water.
Yeah, we call that climate change.
the-
Because it will be changing.
Portals?
well,
Well,
no,
if
just
you're draining the ocean,
Yeah.
that would be bad.
somebody
really,
call
it's really bad.
somebody call
Earth's
Man Bear
gonna be
Pig.
left the desert.
Man, bear, pig. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Man, bear, pig.
so as you can see, even within the one game system, keep in mind that everybody's game will be different, which is why we were glad to be able to present something a little more lighthearted with the Mogwai.
Yeah.
Something a little bit more classical,
Mogwai.
murder, like the Jason Voorhees or
That-
Michael Myers.
That is a murder hobo.
That is a murder hobo.
I think he's just straight murder.
No, he would be a hobo. He doesn't have any. He doesn't have a house.
He
I
doesn't
don't-
have a house.
All right, then. And then of course for
I'm the
the
murder
DM,
hobo DM.
he is the murder. He's
My pirate
But-
game was intense. I often did my pirate game.
which is fine. Which is why you brought us the Predator to continue to kill your
To
player
continue
character.
to kill my pirate.
But
So-
if you're a pirate, you have to expect you're gonna die.
Oh, absolutely.
So
But,
that's
but it's always dramatic. Like, it's never just like,
oh, you
know,
died.
you get stabbed by a goblin and happen to die.
So,
It's always like,
I see we still have a few listeners that are watching this crazy mess today.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a trivia question about Jason Voorhees.
Okay.
I'm gonna fail this, but hit me.
And if any of our listeners out there meet us at a game store, I'll get you a little prize. How many people did Jason kill in the first movie?
I know.
How many people did Jason Voorhees kill in the first movie? Think about it. Get back to us. We'll be here.
Yeah, that one's actually pretty tricky. You have to, because in the
Nightmare on Elm Street.
it's fine. But as you've seen Jason go on, and it's been a lot of young
Don't
teenagers.
apply.
But
Oh, well,
Not yet.
it's
Hold
one
on.
of the reasons that the Scary Movie came out with all the actual unstated safety rules when watching a Scary Movie. Nobody says I'll be right back. Nobody has sex because that's an easy way to get killed. So Jason is responsible for a lot of these safety rules.
like how to not be murdered by Jason.
Yeah.
Keep your clothes on, travel in pairs.
Yeah, exactly.
See, though, I feel like since
I'll be
Mike
right back.
Myers was more of the first urban.
Sure, but he
physical
had
hunter,
one focus.
That was the one of don't go up or downstairs. Like don't go in the basement, don't go in the attic.
Which is true, but he had one focus,
Mhm.
and that was like his family. And Jason was a little more indiscriminate than that. And
If
so,
you were a counselor at Camp Crystal Lake,
There.
I saw a lady last
Don't
week.
become a camp counselor.
I saw a lady last week
Okay.
just wearing a T-shirt that said Camp Crystal Lake on it.
oh no!
You go die.
Fine, love that. I love that.
Now I will say, I did really enjoy the crossover film Freddy versus Jason.
oh, awesome.
When it
movie.
was first announced, I thought it was going
That
to
was
be
the-
total crap.
Only movie of Jason Voorhees I have ever seen.
But I thought it was I thought it was done excellently because it took
yes,
the background of Jason and the background of Freddy, combined that in a really interesting way, and
Yes.
killed a lot of people while they did it.
it killed a lot of people when they did it. Yeah,
And they probably all deserved it. I don't
it
remember.
was
I just
really
laughed at them all the time.
interesting. Was the look that Jason was giving when he got ripped into that alternate world by
Oh, yeah.
Freddy, and he's looking around and he's like, "I know where I'm at, but this ain't right.
Yeah.
It's terribly wrong. This can't be right." And he's just looking around, and then he decides to go with it and just kill everything.
Yeah, he
So-
did. It was awesome.
See, Jason's not funny, but Freddy is.
Freddy always
He
tries
did.
to play on people's
Yeah.
fears that they have.
Well,
So,
so
I've seen like the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and then Freddy
Yeah.
vs. Jason was my first encounter with Jason Voorhees,
which is
Oh.
fair.
Survive.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
but the this is one of the things that's interesting. He's so I'm losing it, but there's
Oh.
different kinds of
Killers.
malicious
Yeah.
undead.
Oh yes.
So from the poltergeist, revenants, which I was talking a little bit earlier. I would say that the headless horseman falls into sort of that category. Freddy is along the lines of a nightmare, but it's something different because he feeds off of fear.
He feeds off of fear, specifically off of the children of the parents, or somehow
Right.
related
Well,
to the ones who killed
he
him.
he
He
had
has
a
very specific targets in mind.
sure. So it was like a preferred thing, but fear actually empowered him. The more afraid of him, the more your thoughts dwelled with him, the more he could affect you.
Yes.
Which is different because Jason's not like your typical zombie,
No.
but he's more zombie or something of that
I
nature.
would classify him, if I had to say what type of undead
Yeah,
is Jason, I would say Jason is a variation of a mummy. He's definitely undead. He's been buried multiple times.
Yeah.
He's been killed several times.
that would make sense. And he does have a curse
Because he does have a curse,
Yeah,
and he does have abilities. When you see a mummy, you immediately turn and run in fear. You
Yeah.
see Jason come at you with a machete, same kind of reaction.
yeah, and then,
So there's a lot of similarities. Mummy is where I would lean towards, though.
that makes a lot
A
more sense
variation
to
of
me.
a mummy. Because he's a high level undead. He has not got a beating heart.
No.
What
No.
do Oni do in 5th edition?
Oni are classified either as a demon or an ogre.
What do they do?
Who?
Oni.
I don't know what they do. I haven't read any of
I
their
vaguely
stats.
remember something about them haunting nightmares.
Well, some of them do, but
Offhandedly.
Oni is
Totally
a
different.
broader term
Yeah.
than because
Unfortunately, in Japanese
Yeah.
traditional mythology, it's just an orc, basically. It's an ogre.
right. So there's a little bit of difference when you're trying to pull in creatures or things from other mythologies. Particularly when you're trying to line them up with a monster manual.
Not to mention that so many of the creatures are just the same thing, but with different names across different mythologies, like
Correct.
kobolds and goblins.
Yeah.
So nobody has the answer yet, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and get it. Because there's been enough time to run with Google.
Yep, I agree.
Oh yeah.
How many people did Jason Voorhees kill in the first movie?
It was 0, Quinn.
It was 0. Everybody killed in the first movie was killed by his mother. What? Yes.
Yep. Jason didn't make his appearance until the
In
second film.
The second film, no
Yes.
shit.
Yeah.
He appears at the very end of the movie where he jumps out of the lake, but that's not like even in proper sequence. He doesn't kill people till the start of the second movie. Everybody's killed by his mother. That's a crazy bitch right there.
Yeah.
She was mad because through the camp counselor's neglect, her son drowned in the lake. So that's where all the killing started from.
Her malice, all the bloodshed, that's the sort of
So
stuff
that would make
cursed
a
him and
great-
brought him back.
Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney.
Could he,
Oh no!
Could he technically be a revenant? Because
Phoenix
if the
Wright,
camp counselors are the
paranormal
ones that
attorney.
caused his death, he would return with vengeance upon them.
But he goes beyond that.
He goes beyond.
Yeah,
that.
he's just kind of psycho now.
Yeah, so it's not like that's where he's at,
What about
and that was where he
White?
started. But
He was
I think,
also brought back a couple times.
which is, I
Not
think,
necessarily just like resurrected, but like summoned.
yeah,
How general can a revenant's vengeance be?
I think
Like, I
it's
want to
more
take
focused.
vengeance on marshmallows.
If marshmallows are caused their death, then it makes sense.
Like,
you
do I
know?
have to find the one specific marshmallow? Because that thing has already been digested.
If Stay Puft himself walks up and stabs you,
well, part of it too is the malice towards that thing upon which you want to get revenge.
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
um,
marshmallows.
So, yeah, that's pretty tricky. But Poltergeist was a particular kind of spectral undead versus a ghost.
Very true.
And so you can have some discernment there when you deal with spectral undead. But this is the other one. We talked about this before, and I'm going to bring it up again. A genie versus a djinn.
Yes.
Or D-Gen or O-Gen.
Right, and there's a couple
Versus
of those.
DJ.
Yes.
No.
No DJs.
Different kind of guy.
And so Wishmaster is one of our favorites. The film itself, when you kind of go back, it doesn't hold up super great. But at the time, like its effects were really solid. And what does stick though is the story and the character of the Jin himself.
And that actor.
That
Holy
actor
crap,
that
that
crushed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got like a couple different voices he uses that are just dripping with malice for life.
Oh.
And he's just like, make your wish. And you're like, oh, so good.
Don't do it. It's obviously a trap.
It is obviously a trap, and you do it anyway.
Make your wish.
And so,
And he never says wishes, it's wishes.
yes,
Yeah.
and he does.
Huge fan of
He's got
that.
some afflictions and affectations,
Yeah.
but like a genie, he ends up trapped inside a small space.
Tiny little space.
But the Jin in Wishmaster in particular, when you finalize the series of wishes, it opens a portal to allow the other Jin to come and wreak widespread destruction on the earth.
Yep.
Because the Jin were banished to this other place. And because of their power, if they're able to flex it enough, they can then open that portal and bring their brethren.
I think the whole 3 wishes thing, and then I can bring everything
Yeah.
through a portal. It's kind of crazy. So if I'm the original all-powerful wizard and I'm trapping a whole race of djinns,
Yeah.
I got to come up with some crazy way that they can unlock the door.
Well,
to come
that's
back.
the thing. Binding spells have to have some sort of rule set.
You have to
Yeah.
have a way to break it.
But it also, if you're
True
when you
Love's Kiss.
when you're dealing
Aw.
with high level magic or innate abilities like we see with the Fae, sometimes there's weird rules on them.
Yeah.
There's one that I saw where the condition in order to break the curse was a good aligned red dragon had to fly over this party during like the winter solstice. Well, that'll never happen. There's not ever going to be a good aligned red dragon, and
Yeah.
there's like these little
Until it
conditions-
exactly
yeah, and
happens.
there's,
Right,
like,
and then
several
it
conditions
almost
that could
becomes
At the
happen.
worst possible time for the villain.
Well,
Right.
but then becomes
But
prophetic when
They
your
have
rules
to
are.
have those conditions as part of the spell in order to create the spell.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when you get into high level magic, there ends up being some odd things. 3 wishes, I think, was something that was innate to the Jin's power and how they interacted with others.
Well, that just shows you their level of personal power.
Right.
I can give wishes
Yeah.
all day long,
It's like
But I cannot break the spell.
so if they do not have, they're not chained to anything.
Yeah.
They have just like in Aladdin with Robin Williams, ultimate power of the universe. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
He can do a wish.
you could literally wish
One
for
after another.
whatever you wanted, and
Anything.
all reality would alter.
Yeah.
Bagel.
Boom, bagel.
That bagel didn't exist before. Reality alters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Eight,
the thing that's interesting about the storytelling of Wishmaster is how he's able to progress his plot and how ultimately the main character is able to defeat him.
Yeah.
Because you can't just he has the ability to not grant anything. So you can't just wish him to go away or wish this or that. That doesn't fit within the rules of the wish.
No.
But if you're clever about it, there's some things you can use that power. I think he had 3 films that they ended up doing.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But they're in the first one. So
Yeah.
the girl did the research, how he got where he was, and
Right.
and the gym he was trapped in the statue. She did the research and found out that he got released because the forklift driver that was working the dock that day was hung over, and he dropped the box, and that started the whole chain of events.
right.
So her final wish
hmm
was that she wishes that that guy wasn't drunk that day when he's at work.
Yeah.
And the Wishmaster's like, nah. And then it dawned on him what that meant.
Yeah.
And so it basically re-rolled time back to that moment. It
The
reset.
domino never fell.
The domino never fell.
Yeah.
And he was trapped in the gym back inside the statue.
Yeah. And very, very pissed off because he's like, ah.
But I remember the first time I saw that movie, I'm like, oh, we just set up for a sequel.
Oh, yes.
Because now somebody else has to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's also, you have to be careful of what you say to them because there's
Well, this, I think, is
like, the witch, like the guy wanted to get
Monkey's
into
paw.
this guy's office in order to find the address for the girl so he can go over to her house to make her do the wishes. And there was a guard at the front of the door that's like, I'm not letting you through here. You're going to have to get through this door over my dead body. And then his mistake was,
No.
I wish you would.
No.
You'd have to go through me.
That's
In fact, I wish you would.
That's exactly what it said.
So he's like, that's a wish. Granted. So he makes
He's
that guy
good.
the glass door and he
Walks
walks through
through
the glass
the-
door, shattering it.
walked through in.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's another one there. I forget how he got him to word it. Something about getting away from it all or escaping it all. I
Yeah.
think escaping it all.
makes him
Oh,
escape,
no.
right?
And he-
No,
and
no,
he
this,
makes-
yeah.
He put him inside Houdini's tank upside down. He says Houdini could do it in 4 minutes. And he walks away. And the guard is inside Houdini's
Yeah.
tank of death.
In the straitjacket,
straitjacket,
upside down,
upside down,
chained
in the
up, the
tank.
whole deal. Yeah.
Houdini
So
could do it in 4 minutes. It's like,
it,
I can't even hold my breath for 30
Oh.
seconds. Damn.
So we borrow a lot from Wishmaster whenever if you have a D&D party that encounters some sort of wish magic, I try to lean into the Wishmaster side.
Absolutely.
at the very least,
absolutely.
So what
It-
did the guy say to get under the Houdini thing again? What was the exact word?
I wish I could get away from it all, or I wish I could escape it, or
I
something.
wish I could escape it, I think is how he
You'll have to watch it, but it was really interesting. If you had the I wish, whatever. So his powers were interesting. The first person, I think it was either the first person that made the 3 wishes, or it had to be very specifically the first person he granted wishes for. Which is why he latched onto the main character.
Yeah.
It was something about
He needed her
he-
to have 3 wishes.
right, because he could have just had some guy go wish for money 3 times and done it. But anybody who said I wish, he could then flex his power.
Mm.
And he always did it in the most malicious way
I'll
possible.
wish for a bagel.
Yeah, and you're struck in your 30 die.
So- So what I've done,
or the big boy sign would collapse and crush you.
Hell yeah.
I've taken
It's a
the
big bag.
Wishmaster,
I want two
and for my games,
Yeah.
one of my hard set rules is if you have wish, greater wish, because there's also a lesser wish.
Yeah.
I will give you 25 words or less to state exactly what you want to happen, and you must do it in writing. And I will not look at any current conditions or settings and impose that view on your wish.
Yeah,
I'll look
it's-
at the wish as you state it and make that happen or not.
Yeah, it's completely out of context. It's
Completely out of
whatever
context.
you say. It's pretty crazy.
Let me give you an example. So one of the party members, they had a ring of wishes and had one wish left in it. Okay. And they find all these different treasure, and they finally come across a huge boat-sized crate full of an entire pyramid, King Tut's treasure. It's all in here,
Mhm.
right? And he's going to steal it, but it's too big. So he pulls out his ring of wishes, and he writes it to me, and he hands it to me. And the wish was, I wish to be magically transported, because you always fuck with teleport or plane travel,
Mhm.
safely to the opening to this dungeon with this treasure. Like, so he wants to be taken out of the dungeon with the treasure safely. Not a problem. I put him inside the crate at the opening. He's still alive, but he's inside the crate. You're not going to get much safer than that.
There you go. It's like being
the
trapped
party-
inside the
and
bank
he-
vault.
No, it gets much better than that. The party, they get mad because he left.
Yep.
And he's sitting over here next to on the table, and he's expecting them to go look for him. And everybody at the rest of the table is like, fuck you, you took off with the treasure. We're going to go look for the rest of the dungeon. I don't know where you went. They have no idea where you went. Right? They have no clue where he went. Poof, he's gone.
Yeah.
Poof, the treasure's gone. So they're like, well, let's go see what else is here. They spent another 4 character days searching rooms and collecting treasure and things. 4 character days. They finally get out of the dungeon. What's sitting there? A box of treasure. I said, there's 4 goblins trying to get it open. They just can't get through the lock. And they're sitting there, and somebody put it together. Hey, that's the boxes in the room when he teleported out. So they go to fight, and the goblins run off, and they open the treasure, and there he is. He's in there. Been in there for 4 days. And the party, they're like, got into a quick discussion.
Oh no.
Should we kill him?
Yeah,
I was like, because he stole, and they knew that as a party member, he would never be trustworthy again.
Yeah.
Because he did this in front of them.
In a dungeon.
In a dungeon in front of them. They could not turn their back on him somewhere. Because they knew he would, at the very least, he would steal whatever he could get a hold of.
Mhm.
So they're like, no, we won't kill him. But they took him and they turned him in as a thief.
Nice.
So, but of course, that all kind of flew apart in their face when I, as the magistrate of the town, was like, so what did he steal? Well, we can't really tell them what they stole because we were all stealing it.
All right, listen here, Scooby and the
Never
gang.
mind.
Stole my
Jinkies.
illegal drugs.
Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Never mind. Never mind. Well,
Now I'm
So-
going to open an inquiry into
Yeah,
this.
exactly. Well,
What
guess
the fuck is happening here?
this is what happens when you use Wish. Da da da
Yeah.
da da da. Dominoes.
so
So,
in my mind, it is a powerful tool that can only be very sparingly ever used. Now, I'm going to tell you about the one time I've had players use Wish probably a dozen times over the years, but I had one player use it, and I, as a DM, could not wiggle out of it.
Mhm.
I had to let it happen. Okay. There was, at the time, there were probably 8th to 10th level, 7 players.
Mhm.
And there was a powerful NPC witch, a night hag,
Mhm.
who was part of the guys that they were fighting.
Mhm.
And they knew she was, but they couldn't prove it, otherwise they just openly attack her. But she was one of them behind the scenes people. And when they would come into town, she would present herself as an apothecary.
Mhm.
But they always knew. In fact, the cleric, he was always, detect evil. Like that.
Giant label, yeah.
And he even did a detect undead, and it's like, kinda something there, but you're
Submarine
not quite
ones.
sure. Well, hell, she was a night hag, but she was using illusion and different potions
Mhm.
to present herself. So they knew that she was the one equipping the people that they were fighting with all this undead stuff.
Mhm.
You know, rings to control them, potions to raise them, and just a number of things. And so they get into a fight, and she actually shows up, and they're like, "We knew it, we knew it, we knew it." You know, screw you, Dave, we knew it. And I'm like, yeah. And so we go around the table, and Scott, him and I took turns demon games. He had a mastermind that he could click together a plan
Oh yeah.
very quickly in his head. And he was sitting over here for the longest time going through papers, and then he stopped. He sits like this, and he just kind of grins.
Yeah.
So going around the table, finally get to Scott, and everybody looking at Scott because he's been sitting there and said a word, I did nothing. They're like, okay, what are you doing? He says, I'm using my one and only wish for this. And he sends me the card with the name because everybody knows that's like a hard set rule. It sends it to me, and I'm reading it, and everybody's like, what is it? What is it? What is it?
Yeah, how's
You know,
Dave gonna mess
what is
this
it?
one up?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, Scott, I can't believe you're using a wish. You know, we're just gonna screw us all with this. And I'm sitting here reading, and I go,
Oh, shit.
I wish that man hadn't been drinking on the job that day. Motherfucker.
he wished for the never ending friendship of the witch known as, I don't remember the character.
Yeah.
It's like, so now she's your best buddy. Damn it. Well, okay, not your best buddy where she wants to have sex with you, but she makes everybody else leave. She's not going to kill you in the party. She's not going to feast on your eyeballs and liver.
I've had wish cast exactly one time on one of my previous campaigns. I made a custom item called the Mask of the Martyr.
You'll need to speak up just a little bit
Sorry, my
For our-
apologies.
for our
I
friends out
made a
there.
custom item called the Mask of the Martyr that had a host of support capability. It was an
Yeah.
artifact, a sentient artifact. And it was slightly cursed. When you put it on, you couldn't take it off.
Slightly cursed.
It's
Okay.
it is the front face skull of a tiefling.
All right.
Not gonna get into the backstory a bit, but it has to do with minotaurs and Baphomet and all sorts of other nasty crap.
So it had
Demons, a lot of
horns?
demons. Yeah, it had horns.
Nice.
Early horns. But it was a good aligned magic item. And it had all sorts of benefits, healing and support, other things.
So where
And it had
the
a
witch
hit-
come in?
A hidden stipulation that if you were martyred,
Oh.
then you as your dying breath, you got one wish.
Ah.
And the mask had to approve the wish.
All right.
So they're fighting liches. I can't remember the lich's name, but it was the basically the,
Lich's pearl.
so
Yeah.
it was the tomb of not horrors,
Annihilation.
Was it?
not probably not annihilation. It was like the fire. I can't remember what it's called. It was like the zoo, and the last level was this pyramid with a demi-lich in it, and you could walk on the inside walls, defying
Oh.
gravity. Can't remember what that dungeon's called. But this character, his name is Tyrick, dies, and it's considered martyrdom because he's trying to save this dwarvish city.
Right.
And so the mask asks him, "What is your wish?" And he says, "I want all of the liches of the nation of Thay to be purified." And the mask is like, "Their phylacteries are hidden, but for now, they will die and will have to reform."
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
entire nation's leadership was gone for what, 180 days? How long does it take for a lich to regrow?
Yeah.
10
Yeah.
decade?
Quite a while.
It depends.
Quite a while.
It
Yep, that was his wish. Poof. This dungeon is the dungeon that we picked was dedicated to liches, and the last level
Yeah.
had the phylacteries of every lich in Thay.
So I was running something very similar to that where they were fighting liches, and they come across a bunch of phylacteries, and Scott's character, Talia Dannon, fighter magic user,
Mhm.
genuine badass, had a magic stone that amplified the effects of short list of spells.
Mhm.
And it amplified them by a factor of 30. Range, duration, hit dice and damage.
Mhm.
So you do like
Radius, all that.
yeah, all of it was. So they got into a room where all these phylacteries were stacked on shelves, and there's a few skeleton guards and things. Everybody's dealing with the guards and a couple of necromancers and different things. And get around the table, Scott, what are you doing? He says, I'm gonna cast a spell. Shatter through the stone.
Mhm.
I'm like,
boy, shatter.
oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all dead now.
All the flak shattered.
Yeah.
Everything's gone. So remember, kids, when you have a lich as a bad guy, don't even make it an option. 'Cause-
Yeah. Hide that phylactery good.
yeah.
You put it on top of a rod of immovable parts and then fly it somewhere into low orbit.
Yeah. Hit the immovable rod, you go, set word. It's there. And you fly back down.
Forever. Yeah. No one's ever gonna find it. It's in low orbit.
No, I think we've covered a whole lot of things here today. We've talked about gremlins. We've talked about
The Predator.
the Predator. Very cool write-up
Yeah.
that you did on that.
Absolutely.
But one thing I do want to have you do, Dad, grab the Ravenloft book or box there.
Went box.
Yeah.
Yep. Down.
This one.
Yeah. So help him out there, Quinn. Oh, I didn't see it. Rune and seal tap. Stop. Stack on top of it.
There's no wall behind that curtain.
Here, Quinn, use both hands. Yeah, both hands. So, as we watch the circus, I'm going to have him pull out Ravenloft because Ravenloft was your sort of original horror-themed world setting. And this is from 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Let's see that.
Yeah. With everybody's favorite vampire lord, Strahd. So if you can find this information, the whole world setting. What are you doing? Crazy weird. And then of course there's the Curse of Strahd for 5th edition. That campaign is fairly popular. But the world setting is something that you want to get a hold of if you'd like to continue horror-themed adventures beyond October. This is very much your European world setting.
Oh, yeah.
Gypsies, old castles, and it's a lot of fun. Werewolves are crazy in this, lycanthropy. The dark forces that make this world work, control it, and destroy it can be quite fun to do.
If you're not familiar with Ravenloft as a world setting, think of it as Cthulhu Light.
Yeah, Cthulhu would make this even crazier, and I don't even want to go here.
No. Yeah. Ravenloft would be like a
Cthulhu
step
is
up to
a
crazy.
different kind of horror, though.
Yeah.
It is a different kind of horror.
If
for
I
sure.
had a choice, Cthulhu or Ravenloft, I'm going to Ravenloft.
You're like, which ones
Because
do I
here
want
I
to
know
fight?
I have a chance to live.
Yeah.
There's a two-headed serpent.
Two-headed serpent from Pulp Cthulhu, an action-packed and globe-spanning campaign.
Yeah, let's put that up on the pedestal over there, and
Yes.
we'll make sure to show that off, please, Mr. Producer. So, this is what you're currently running
This
now.
is what I'm doing on Sundays.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Sunday.
Most of the time.
Now, this is the thing that was interesting. Most of the time you deal with Call of Cthulhu, there's some sort of sanity mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell us how many times your players have had
It
to...
has been several weeks. I'm not sure exactly how many, but we are on chapter 5, Iceland.
Yep.
And they have failed a sanity check.
One time. So, now,
That's all
this
it
is a...
takes. That's
no,
all it takes.
They've had...
Unfortunately, no. It takes a little bit more than that.
Sounds like a lot of those guys have their psychiatrist on speed dial.
It seems like they do.
It's a slow attrition, and the one time it succeeded, it was what was called temporary insanity. It's a quick
Yeah.
bout of madness, and the character lost 5 points, made an intelligence check, and I was like, okay, so here's what happens. This character's backstory, and it's
Yeah.
a very backstory heavy system where background characters, important items to yourself, your
Mhm.
occupation, all very important. And this character had a debt to his father, so he heard his father's voice behind him up a set of stairs as he looked down at this horrible, scaly face of a man who he knew for a fact was dead and had just killed him for the second time. That's what made him insane. He heard his dad's voice up at the top of the stairs. You disappointment! And he turns up and he sees his dad, and his dad goes, "You have been out of France for so long, and you have not paid back your debts. You're the worst son I have ever had, you failure." And the character just went nuts. "No, Dad, I'm sorry," and like ran upstairs, and he was about to sell all of his gear to pay back his father, and he got stopped by the other player character. And I was so close to selling. He had a Lewis gun. He was the minigun guy. I was about to sell his gun.
There's a lot of money though.
It is a lot of money. He wouldn't have paid off his debt.
No, but that's still fun. The so they've seen aberrations, they've
They
dealt
have
with
seen-
otherworldly,
they have
and they're like,
seen
nope, I'm
Formless
fine.
spawn giant snakes, carpets of snakes. One of them had a snake, like, there was the scepter, and he touched it, and he was given visions of snakes doing all sorts of horrible things to his body, in his body, just haunting him. And nope, they ain't going crazy.
No, totally succeeded those sanity
Yep.
checks. It's like, I shot that guy twice.
The
Ah!
second guy picked up the rod, and the rod requires a extremely difficult a power check, which the first guy failed. This
Yeah.
guy picked it up. Extreme success. The rod bound to him. He could he could call all snakes in a 1 mile radius. In the middle of the Bolivian jungle,
So-
there were a lot of
Sounds
snakes.
oh, we need a staircase. I have an idea.
yeah, yeah.
He can't
So
control them. He can just go whoa la la and snakes.
Right, but if there's enough of them that get
Whoa,
here now
whoa.
as a pilot.
You can't control them.
Nope.
So when they show up, do they bite him?
No, that is true. They cannot.
well, he's got protection against them, but
yeah,
he
he's
can't
got
go
protection
snakes.
against-
Go get.
And if he aggravates them, like attacks them, then it's free game. But he got a small snake companion. It was a carpenter snake.
I'm kind of envisioning like in Harry Potter when they follow the spiders and they
Oh,
got
yeah.
to the lair. There's millions of spiders everywhere.
Mhm. And one giant spider.
Yeah.
And there was one giant snake.
And yeah. So there's like.
Thankfully, they had to kill the giant snake to get to that rod. So
But there you are, playing Call of Cthulhu, and no one's insane yet. What the hell's wrong with you?
one person is gonna say they keep passing their checks.
the first time.
Insanity checks, you can't do negative. It's just straight up. They have their skill and you roll.
The first time I ever played.
They tell you if they succeed or not.
The first time I played Cthulhu,
Mhm.
we were playing it in the 1920s era.
Mhm.
And so we had, a car, we all like gangsters with 45s and Tommy guns.
Yeah.
And we went into this one old broken down house, kind of like the monsters would live in. And we were going to see a guy about some stuff, because we were all gangsters. And so we knocked on the door, no answers. So we kick in the door. And within 2 rooms, I don't remember exactly what it was we encountered, but all of us failed our fear checks and our sanity checks and ran out of the house, past our car and down the street.
Mhm.
All of us.
Yep.
And like, well, we got to go back. And of course, then it was later the DM as he, stopped laughing at us. So when you get back to your boss, he's going to know how the meeting went. And we're like, I'm not going to tell him. So
The guy never showed.
yeah, the guy never showed.
Yeah.
It was an interesting night to say the least. It was, seeing a monster we couldn't describe and its overwhelming monsterness.
Yeah.
Plays on-
Overwhelming monster.
Well, it's a creature that you've never seen, you never heard tales of,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it's just this horrible construct of a living creature in front of you that you cannot describe, and
You have to
your
get away from
brain
it.
breaks. You gotta leave.
I think part of it is that a Lovecraftian monster hits different to a
Yes.
detective in the 1920s than it does an adventuring party of D&D guys.
Yeah, in D&D, Lovecraft, I don't think could ever work because someone will just
Because
wish it out of
Well,
Yeah,
it.
but it's like Cthulhu shows up. It's like, oh, it's just a mind flayer. I've already
Oh,
done
no,
it.
Exactly. Well, that's
No.
a star spawn of Cthulhu.
Have
You get
Right.
it.
you've seen the South Park where Cartman takes over Cthulhu and he's like
Yeah.
calls to Cthulhu and it's raging destruction and he's sitting on Cthulhu's shoulder telling him where to go and what to tear.
Yeah, get that guy. Oh, that guy
Get that guy.
sucks.
Get that guy! Get him!
It was
That
pretty-
looks cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
That's cute!
So, along the vein of the Lovecraft horror, was a game. It was a release title for GameCube called Eternal Darkness, and it was a survival horror, a lot like The earlier Resident
Your memory.
dude, it fucked with your memory card. It had a whole lot of stuff that it would do based on your character's sanity level. So, but it was built like Resident Evil, but it gave you a sword. So when you, instead of like trying to target the head and the characters like shooting the ceiling for no reason, when you target the head, they do a downswing, so you could chop up your zombies, which didn't always work. Because
Because they weren't always real.
which they weren't always real, and there were 3 different outsiders that you could have as the antagonist. So you play through the opening chapter as this Roman centurion, and you get to the end. There's these emaciated dead that we'd see, sort of like skeletons with the remnants of skin on them and stuff. You're a very basic sort of zombie or skeleton monster, and you get through this temple, and at the end of the temple is a small circular room, 3 pedestals, each with an artifact on it. Depending on which one he grabs, is the outsider that you end up as the antagonist for the rest of the game. He picks up the artifact, he is corrupted and killed immediately, and bound to the service of this outsider.
Yep.
As a lich. And so, but it's cool because it plays out over thousands of years. Your main character is this woman who's gone to the Northeast. Her grandfather had just passed. He was actually murdered. So you're in that mansion trying to figure out what happened with his murder. You find the book, and as she's reading this book, it plays the different chapters of the characters of throughout history. And that's the Tome of Eternal Darkness. So it was really neat presentation, and that way where you start in the past, you get progressively closer to modern day, and then at the end, the character sets down the book, it goes, I gotta do something about this, and then you've got your modern day, your final story, where you end up in battle. The coolest thing about it is the twist ending. It requires you to play the game 3 times, 1 for each of the outsiders, because they balance them in a in a rock paper scissors way. But they at the beginning of the game they kill the corpse god Mantarok, and he manipulates time space to bind and kill these 3 other outsiders. But you only get the final story when you play the game 3 times. So don't take my word for it. Go check it out. Find the videos on YouTube, the cutscenes or that sort of stuff. If you happen to have a GameCube or one of the earlier Wiis that'll still play GameCube games, highly recommend Eternal Darkness. It starts off very interesting. The opening narration is, my name is Dr. Alexander Roivas. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I am also dead.
Oh, that's a great fucking start, dude.
Yeah, you're like, oh, whoa, okay, and it really set the tone. It was very good.
Awesome.
Some of the things
Very
that the game would do to you when your character's sanity was low. So anytime you got spotted by a monster, and they got progressively freakier, it would drain. So you had health, magic, and like a mind meter, so an intelligence or sanity. And the lower your character's sanity meter, the more the game would do weird stuff. So there's always those busts, classical Roman style. Well, now the head is following you as you walk down the hallway. And it's small, subtle stuff like that. It wasn't until like you got way later that the walls were bleeding and stuff. But the one that was crazy was like American Revolution time. The mansion that you're in has just been built. So this is like one of your great-great-great-grandfather or whatever. And so some things are happening because obviously the site where your mansion's built just happens to be on this ley line of ancient evil, as it goes in Cthulhu sort of stuff.
Awesome.
So he's battling all this thing that he's discovered suddenly is in this basement, basically.
Or your family lineage this whole time has been descendant from deep ones of ages past.
Yeah. So, but for him, one of his weapons was a rapier or saber. Sorry. And then he also had dual flintlock pistols. And if your sanity meter was low enough, when you went to reload, he instead would shoot himself in the head. And the first time, and then it wasn't real. It was him having,
Like a suicide.
him having like psychic, like mental breaks. But it's, so you're in the middle of a pitched battle. Something's trying to eat you, and you're like, shit, I need to reload. And instead of he goes to reload, he puts the one under his arm and does it, and then the other one he goes, bam, and shoots him. And then it comes back, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? You watch this guy. The other subtle stuff that was, it got me, like, for the first couple hours I was playing the game. if you've ever had a fly in the house
Yeah.
and they get on the screen, there's a little fly and it would disappear, and a little fly, and you come up and you go to smack it, you're like, what? And it was in the
off the
game.
And
So it's
then there's like more and more. There's like 30 of them.
sometimes depending, yeah, and so it would do that to you as the player. I remember beating chapter 3 very early in the game, and it flashes up this screen. It says, "Thanks for playing Eternal Darkness. Be sure to finish the rest of the story in Eternal Darkness 2 coming later this year." And I was like, 5 hours into the game, that's nothing. And I was like, what the f are you talking about? The second game? Are you kidding? And then it flashes off, and you're like, you sons of bitches.
Like, save file corrupted. No!
Oh yeah, dude, it like just so many things that they did to mess with you as the player, to really
Beautiful.
give you that feeling of
Beautiful.
the mental breakdown
Cast
that was
a healing
happening.
spell and your character explodes.
Yes, because now you're dealing with like outsider magic, so that anytime you cast a spell would affect your sanity, and so you're like, okay, I beat up my sanity's low. Try to cast a healing spell, and your character, you know, what the, and then it flashes back, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was.
I play this game, man. This
There's
house.
so many,
It does.
so many of
So-
those little things that I could.
So
Eternal Darkness.
yes, Mr. Producer, show it was Eternal Darkness for GameCube.
Find a thing to do, Connor. You know the thing.
Yeah, do the thing, Connor.
Your special thing that you do.
Yeah, Eternal Darkness. A cool cast of characters. It was a really good storytelling because it showed over thousands of years, right? This ancient evil and their plot, how you're dealing with outsiders, how you're these characters that aren't even heroes, right? Are trying to deal with this stuff that just suddenly shows up, which is very Lovecraftian.
Mhm.
You're like, hey, we just moved into a house, and then you're like, who's up in the attic? There's no one in the attic.
And that's
Oh,
kind
it's
of
a
what
ghost in
base
the attic.
Cthulhu does. It's
Yeah.
like your professors or doctors or journalists.
Yeah,
Whereas
and
with
they
Pulp Cthulhu, you know, you can go a little more. I was a soldier. I was a
Yeah.
combat medic.
yeah.
Well, there is one of those in Eternal Darkness. It's my favorite section to play in the game. Your character is I think it's like an army firefighter. So whenever he
Well-
gets mixed up in all this, he has like a fire axe and an M4.
Well,
Hell yeah.
Like,
so in 1990 there was the Gulf War.
yeah,
One of the things that the Iraqi forces did when they
Light the oil fields
retreated
on
was
fire.
they lit oil fields on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so the character you play is fighting a fire. It gets out of hand and the oil tower explodes. He and his group fall into this ancient temple. Well, guess what? It's a temple you've been in before in the storyline a couple characters ago, a few hundred years ago. And so you get to find some of the ancient weapons, but he's got a fire axe. You get a hold of a military rifle because of some of the stuff that fell in with it. But it was interesting as you move through this stuff, and at certain points in the game you revisit old locations and they've changed and broken down, and you find different things that weren't discovered by the last character.
one lady gets bored reading the Tome of Eternal Darkness and then accidentally finds a god.
Yeah, it was.
How do you get bored reading the Tome of Eternal Darkness?
I mean, you know, you study something for what, 12, 16 hours a day.
I gotcha.
Eventually, there's only so many eyes that you can pull out before it gets. a
This
little-
goes back to when you run your games, find excellent content to borrow from. Just like we talked about with these other generated stat blocks, the things that we've made available now on I Want to Be a GM Facebook. We will post those as well to our Discord server once we've got them in the appropriate format. You'll find those under the downloadable pages link. I forget exactly.
So a files tab on I Want to Be a GM
Well-
on Facebook,
Right, but I've also got that channel on the Discord.
and there's a channel
So-
on Discord that says downloadable PDFs.
That's the one. So we've got the information available. Ravenloft, all this stuff. Remember to be descriptive and rather than explanatory. You can really set up those horror moments and get that payoff for your players. But I think that covers it. So we're going to sign off for today, and we appreciate you guys being here. I'm Jester Boris with I Want to Be a Gym. Joining me today is...
Troy, the Planescape guy, with a special guest.
Quinn the Fighter.
Hey!
Yeah. So we'll see you next time, guys. We're going to have one more stream for the year. Look for the announcements regarding the upcoming live events, and we'll see you on the next one.